Walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feel like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul.
It's that feeling of a brand new split. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Titan Esports Conqueror League, where we have a best of 3 matchup here in week 1 for you. It's Syndicate Pepsi taking on Omega Fever, and you have a new face on the Titan broadcast today. My name is Ferris. I'm here to show the world, and I'm joined by Swifty on the desk today. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling excellent. Super excited to get into Conqueror League. Titans kicking back off. All these leagues are starting their games. Super excited to see what these teams bring to the table today, Ferris. And excited to have you here.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, so, it's really exciting when it's the first game of any type of tournament you're playing in, no matter what sport it is. You're getting the jitters out. You might be playing
Sure.
on a new team, some new teammates, and you're kind of working things out. You're seeing how it's going to go. So I expect maybe some nerves here for these players. Maybe they're feeling confident. Who knows? They're gassed up. They're ready to go. But it's exciting when you are starting off clean slate and you want to start your season off with a bang. So that's kind of the stakes here for this matchup too, right? You want to get that first win. You want to take that first step towards the long road to playoffs. And that's what's on the line for both these teams.
Absolutely. It's a trend-setting sort of series, right? Your first series in any league, particularly one right as we enter a new split, right? There's a lot less data to go off of when you're doing your homework on these teams. So a lot less previous history because it's the first game of any season. So really excited to see what these teams bring to the table, what things they've been cooking up in their practices. I think it'll be cool drafts, and I'm excited to see some banger games.
So am I. So speaking of the players here, let's go ahead. You have it on the front of your screen, but those are the starting rosters here for both of these teams. And those will be the players that will be bringing out their champions onto the Rift, as I'm sure very soon we are ready here for the draft to begin. And we're going to see what these teams have for us here in game number 1 in this best of 3. Now, I have a question for you, Swifty, and maybe I should have asked this before the broadcast, but are we in a fearless draft or not?
This is not a fearless draft.
Not a fearless draft.
To the best of my knowledge. Yeah, I don't think this is fearless draft. There might be one in Titan, if I'm not mistaken, but it is not Conqueror League. Immortal League would be the fearless draft. But in Conqueror, if you've got a power pick and it's not banned, you can keep slamming that power pick, Ferris. And yeah, that's another thing about non-fearless draft is I'm excited to see what people bring to the table. Maybe if they're cooking up new stuff with a new lethal tempo rune, with champion changes. And excited to see what they bring and see if that affects ongoing drafts as we move into this one right now.
That we do. And yeah, we are on a big patch that has happened from 14.18 to 14.19. It was the transition from split 2 to split 3. So there was a lot of changes that happened, sort of like a durability patch, if you will. If anyone was playing League back when that big durability patch came out, that was the talk of the talk. Well, we have a lot of reduction in damage in itemizations. A lot of mage items, marksman items have been changed around, tank items too. So it'd be interesting as well, not only to see what the players are good at and what they're comfortable with throughout their entire career playing League, but also what might have changed here on 14.19 and what the teams have prepped on this patch, because there's a whole lot of things that have changed. And you said it yourself too, one of the bigger things was the re-addition of lethal tempo and the changes of all those runes.
Yep, I've been noticing a lot in my solo queue games, a lot of Yasuo, Yone. I know there's been a lot of prio, a lot of talk about even in pro play, Yone being a high priority pick in mid lane or possibly even in top lane. I'm excited to see how that shakes things up for sure. And also, like you said, with this new almost durability patch, I think there's going to be a lot higher of a priority on either scaling champs or tanks or percentage HP champs. As we see, a scaling champ picked up B1 for the side of Syndicate Pepsi. Hui, what do you think about the Hui?
Well, it's got lots of range. It's got good AoE damage. It's a reliable pick, something that's pretty safe to blind pick too, because you have lots of range. You can't get punished super easily. You are immobile, but with that range and that wave clear that you have, you can kind of stifle any aggressive picks that might come your way. The response here is going to be the Tristana and the Skarner. Now, Tristana is a champion that got a whole wave load of nerfs and buffs and changes over the last couple patches. So it'll be interesting to see if this is taken into the mid lane for Kibi Boy or if this is going to be put into the bot lane for Evil Zara, and we'll have to see as the draft continues.
I think that's actually exactly the power of the pick here on the red side, is it operates as a flexible pick. Granted, you're already seeing the mid laner out of the side of Syndicate Pepsi, but it opens up the option to say, hey, do we like this fit for our composition better in the mid lane or in the bot lane? And followed up with a Skarner and now an Ornn pick. You can already see the tank priority for this side of OGF here. I believe Riot came out with some statistic that champions are living and fights are lasting on average 3 to 5% longer, which their intent of that being to expand skill expression over the course of a longer duration fight. And talk about long duration fights, you've got two of the tankiest champions in the game for the side of Omega Gaming Fever. So they're clearly, I think, leaning into this durability patch, and I'm excited to see how these teams round these out. A lot more of almost a traditional comp for the side of Syndicate Pepsi. Like, this is something I would have been, seeing maybe last split. As we see the last of the bands come out here, and we're gonna see, I'm assuming they are not going to pick like a mid or a ADC to hold that Tristana flex here on R4.
Yeah, and you said it yourself. You talked about the scaling picks and how we might see more late game oriented stuff. Well, here is quite literally a prime team composition here. You have a hyper, well, maybe not necessarily a hyper scaling in the sense of like it's your Jinx or something, but you have an ADC and you have two big tanks and then a nice enchanter to boost up the power of that AD carry. And I'm very interested to see a certain lock-in now on the side of Syndicate Pepsi, that being the Vayne for May. And also, it's not going to be a Morgana support. This is looking like potentially a Morgana jungle angle if I do have to look at this draft. This is some pretty spicy picks. We talked about picks. Hey, we haven't seen Vayne bot in forever, and we haven't seen Morgana jungle in a very long time either. The response on R5 being Ahri here, but I would say we got a pretty spicy draft here, at least on Syndicate Pepsi's side.
Spicy indeed. I'm a very big fan of the pick here, Morgana. I think having a jungler who can get that black shield sort of around the map in skirmishes, objective fights early, I think is really powerful into a meta where fights are going to be more extended, right? And I do really like the Vayne pickup here. Vayne obviously has % max HP true damage with the Silver Bolt passive. Being able to rip through champs like Skarner, like Ornn, with Emilio healing them up over the course of a long fight, I think is a very potent pick here. I like the response. But also, clearly, like you said, having a Tristana who is not necessarily like a hyperscaling champ, because also has a lot of early pressure, but has that range growth over the course of it, has Emilio to keep her alive, will also clearly be doing a lot of output as the game goes on. Really excited to see how these teams approach the early game here. There's clearly scaling on both sides. And I'm curious to see if any team has more of an opinion on what they can get done earlier in the game as we move into game one, Ferris.
We are on to the Rift for game one. Again, this is Syndicate Pepsi versus Omega Fever, the first streamed match here of the Titan Conqueror League Fall 2024. And it's kicking off right here, right now, with a grouped up stack on this bottom tri-brush. And we haven't seen, speaking about the Tristana, who interestingly enough has taken exhaust in the rune, or in the summoner spells rather. I'm interested to see how a Tristana bot plays out. It feels like it's been forever since we've seen this champion in the bot lane. It's been Tristana mid forever and ever and ever. And so will it dominate against a Vayne who wants to make it to those later stages of the game where she feels most comfortable into this heavy front line? Or will the Vayne be able to outplay, maybe use the Condemn to stop the aggression of that Tristana?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think the bot lane matchup is going to be, and especially how they move into the late game with their damage outputs and ability to impact team fights, is going to depend a lot on this early game here. Obviously, with a Nautilus, you've got potential to do damage early, even though Vayne might need a little bit of time to actually get that damage online, as opposed to possibly a Tristana who, with that E directly onto an enemy ADC's head, can deal a lot of damage early in the game. However, a little bit less lockdown Milio versus the obvious Nautilus engaged support here. I noticed Pro Comps has picked up a little bit of a draft edge for the side of Syndicate Pepsi here. I'm curious to see if that might be because of the total damage outputs as the game goes on for both of these teams here. Obviously, with the Hui, even with the Renekton, and even Morgana's later game damage, there I think is a lot more damage coming out of the side of Syndicate Pepsi here as the game goes on than there is out of, say, really just an Ahri and a Tristana moving forward in the game here for the side of Omega Gaming Fever.
Yeah, and if one of your carry champions from Omega, if they fall behind, then your damage really is bottlenecked into that other carry. Unless your tanks are super fed, we know that tanks can still deal damage in this game, but not a sufficient amount of damage to really carry these team fights. And it's going to be tough to actually get onto potentially a Vayne who's running around with all the self-peel and mobility that she has, as well as maybe a Black Shield to keep her safe and Nautilus for peel. So if there's no heavy damage coming out of their backline, if they start to fall behind, then that could be a problem for the Omega Fever comp. But how do we feel about this Morgana jungle? Because like I said, we haven't seen it in a really long time, and I wonder what the game plan is here in terms of play style. Is it just going to be, I'm going to try and outpace this Skarner and farm it up, or is it going to be maybe I'm gank heavy, I'm invade heavy. How is this? How, at least, what's your read on how this pick is kind of going to work?
I think, my understanding of this pick here, having played Morgana jungle myself, I'm a jungler. I'm a big Morgana jungler fan. Its clear speed has always been good, even with some of the nerfs to it. When people had discovered it was a little bit overpowered, its clear speed is fantastic. It allows you to get gold on, and then put yourself on the map. And while it's not necessarily a big gank heavy jungler, there's a little bit of skirmishing may happen in the bot lane.
Just some trades, it looks like. May takes half her HP.
To not crazy much avail. I think it allows you to put yourself in a position where you can impact the map in a way that your team needs, right? It's a really good supportive jungler pick. And as you see, she's actually clearing faster than the Skarner and now matching the Skarner pressure as she
Find
throws
Sailor
up
here. The Dredge line will go wide. It's going to hit the wall. The Condemned lands, and that's going to be Evil Zara. That's going to be stunned into the wall. Going to use the rocket jump forward, and they're next focusing here. AI on the Morgana. It's going to be First Blood. That is going to go the way of Syndicate Project, but the return kill is there. But May now has those double buffs. Is going to tumble forwards and still find the kill through the flash and flash away himself to get away from this one. Charm goes wide, but the damage is there here for Kippa Boy, who's moved from the mid lane, and D-Shot is going to be the next target. Flash away. Can he escape now? Has the shield to give himself a little more HP, running towards that tower. Dredge line connects. That should be enough to bring him to safety. Charm doesn't land. We have ourselves our first 4 kills of the game, and now let's look topside. Some trading happening, but that is going to be it across the map.
As we see, that fight was already relatively extended and a lot of blood being spilled over that Ferris. It almost looks like the side of Syndicate Pepsi didn't quite have their ducks in a row and communicating on the same page there, as the Black Shield comes out onto Nautilus, only for the Morgana herself to get picked up by the Skarner and thrown directly into the wall with that E. I think almost close to a really good fight for Syndicate Pepsi. Obviously, it is a 2-for-2. It's still anybody's game. I don't think anybody came out particularly behind in that one. Obviously, the Vayne, though, picking up 2 kills is very good if you are Vayne, right? Feels very good. However, Tristana already up a few, what is that, about 2 waves on the Vayne. So again, anyone's game here, but I like to see the blood happening early. I like the Morgana and the Skarner matching each other's clear, trying to see who's going to take the 3v3 here.
And it feels like with their early pathing, they really knew where they wanted their focal point to be. As Strangleroot, my man, you're not in a good spot here. Has the flash to try and outplay this one. Slice and dice away, plus the flash. That's 3 mobility spells that have been used, but it's not enough because the Scorpion tracks you down. And that will be the 3rd kill of the game for Omega Fever.
It's too many legs, Ferris. I'm a huge fan of this pick, Skarner. Played very well here. Props to Strangleroot. I think that was played excellently, holding the slice and dice with the flash to get out. However, the power of Skarner, the ability to just E across the map, put you into your own tower, and then walk out, just as a showcase of the strength of the power of that pick. Well played by both Strangleroot and Sailor there, but obviously Skarner's going to pick up the kill and then try to go back to his clear. As Grubs are going to get started by the Morgana, who, in my opinion, I really like this move here. I think Morgana's clear on these with the pool and the hard resets on it makes it a very, very easy clear. I think this is going to be a quick 3 Grubs picked up at the side of Syndicate.
Yeah, it's been pretty fast. You literally just put those pools down, and almost like it doesn't have a cooldown because it's constantly ticking on those Grubs. Kippa Boy is going to walk up here. The spell there from Hui is going to miss. Now in a little bit of trouble. The Charm will connect, kind of barrel stuff in there to guarantee that you would hit it. Call the Forge God comes through, forces the flash here from Sung Yunyi. But that's it. That's the kill. And now in with the Dominus is Strangleroot now, who's kind of in a 1 versus 3 right now. A little bit late to the party right now. Maybe regretting his choice to go in, but is taking down Sailor here for the moment. Has 50 Fury locked in, but doesn't have the cooldowns available. And that will be 2 kills now for Omega Fever. Let's look towards the bot lane. May is now in trouble. Evil Zara with the double rocket trying to do the damage. Going to be able to get the kill. It actually goes over to Naysayer, and with the reset can get away from D-Shot, who now has to run tails between his legs with his AD carry down.
Wow, a lot of fighting across the map there. I like to see the skirmishing. You got to be a little bit worried, though, if you're Syndicate after a few of these skirmishes, as you are now down 2 kills to 6 and about 2K gold, excuse me, at 7 minutes and 18 seconds here. I really like the play there from the Morgana, as we call it out, but obviously the capitalization play from the ability of an RE to roam up and an Ornn to roam down there. Great answer from the side of Omega Gaming Fever. They picked themselves up a handful of kills. We are now looking at a 203 Skarner and a 102 RE, both of whom have a great ability to affect side lanes on the map early and rotate to objectives. And it's played nearly to perfection there, as they now look to have a little bit of a lead in this game as some trading happens top lane.
Yeah, they certainly have that lead. sort of established now, and it'll be interesting. You said how they can move around the map, they can impact the map easier. Let's see how well they actually do that. Can they balloon this gold lead even further? Because Ari and Tristana are champions who can, with their mobility, snowball their leads quite nicely. As level 6 advantage, Evil Zara is ready to push the envelope there, right? Like, just wants to go for that 1v1. I'm stronger than you. I want to make it happen. And the wave is actually pushed up right now for Syndicate or Pepsi's bot lane. I almost said Syndicate Project, if anyone knows what the hell I was talking about there.
Yeah, I think you said it earlier once, and I caught it.
Oh my gosh, did I? Okay, Syndicate Pepsi.
No,
try and get it through my head. It's so
Pepsi,
similar.
Pepsi. Yep.
Pepsi.
Yeah, it looks like both bot laners there, as you were commenting, are trying to get wave priority here on the bot lane. We do have the dragon that has spawned, has been spawned on the map. Getting your mid lane and your bot lane priority is League 101 for picking up objectives, be it Baron, be it Rift Herald, or be it Dragon. So we see actually Omega Gaming Fever realize this. They're able to use the power of the Tristana push with the E passive to get that across as they're going to start it up. And
ooh, that's a breath of life that had to be used there. And it looks like they want to contest this, does Syndicate Pepsi. So the Milio ultimate being gone off the rip might be detrimental to them as AI gets into the pit. The binding will land. They're going to put the good amount of damage onto Sailor here. There's the ultimate as well from the Hui. And Keep Up Boy is forced to flash away from this one as the Hui actually steals the Cloud Drake away. Are you kidding me? The smite was not enough from Sailor. This could be bad for Omega Fever. The final hour's been used for May, but they're dropping low. Evil Zara in the mix of everyone. The Buster shot will finish off the kill. The flash away. It won't be enough, but that was so close. Nonetheless, this is a big play here for Syndicate Pepsi.
Absolutely huge play there. I actually didn't realize until you pointed it out that dragon went over to the Hui and not the Skarner. It's a lot of damage coming out of the Hui ultimate. I'm not sure if it beats a 600 smite, but obviously that's the point when the pressure's on. When you're sitting there with 200 HP as a Skarner alone in pit, not sure if you're going to die before the dragon does, and that pressure is clearly enough to make the smite miss, as the Hui has a great play there. They pick up a few kills. They minimize the gold deficit down from 2k to 1k gold as they move into 10 minutes here. They pick themselves up an objective. Great signs of life out of the side of Syndicate Pepsi. This game is by no means over, Ferris.
No, it is not. We can see some CS discrepancies in the mid lane right now. Seong Yeoni is really far ahead of Kibaboy in the CS department, and that's kind of reflected as well in the bot side. So that makes for another close portion of this game, which is the fact that these lanes, some of them are ahead, but then on the other side, the other lane is ahead. So we might be in for a close game, like you said, but 6 grubs now potentially here for Syndicate Pepsi. On the other side of the map is Sailor. So they also will have the ability to leverage that extra tower damage that they can output now if plays go their way and they start to siege.
Absolutely here, and with a composition that has the ability to a Renekton with a teleport, a Hui on the side lane later in the game, a Vayne's just natural ability to hit a tower with auto attacks as an ADC. It's a lot of ability to apply pressure in lanes. 6 grubs takes down turrets very, very quickly. I'm really curious to see how they leverage that moving forward in the game. I think it's a potent buff. In this new meta, a potent sort of permanent buff for your team. And I think that it's a really good understanding of how the Morgana jungle works to pick up a full 6 here. I think they're in a position to do well as some ultimates.
This is going to be Stubby, who's gone. That was still close, though. Strangleroot almost died in that 2v1 gank. So almost the 2v1 outplay from Stubby, but a nice pickup there from Syndicate Pepsi. And I agree with you in your analysis of the grubs. Let's take a look at Seong Yeoni, but there's the Impale. The flash isn't going to get you anywhere when that ability is still up and available. Going to try and put out as much damage as he can, but the kill will go to the Scorpion. 3-0 now.
3-0 and 3 as we see 2 Giants belts come out for him. As some bot lands,
more action in the bot lane. Depth charge comes through as well. Evil Zara is in trouble. The rocket jump isn't going to get you out of this one, or maybe it is, because that burst was incredible. Even I underestimated it, and what looked like Evil Zara was caught. In the end, it was just a bait.
And absolutely just a bait. Even you and I were baited. Really well played from Evil Zara there to capitalize on the play. Skarner's going to make to look this a full
Sailor's making a play here, but the teleport is coming through. They have to kill him quickly. Naysayer gets the kill credit. Strangleroot's on the scene, but what really can the Croc do in this situation? 1 versus 3. He's going to try and put on his best 369 impression. The Chinese Renekton, but it's not a Chinese Renekton. That is going to be the failed teleport save, and more kills go the way of Omega Fever.
You got to appreciate the heart there out of Strangleroot, trying to make a play out of thin air happen. However, it's just not enough. This is the power of that Skarner. I was about to comment prior. We're seeing the Heartsteel about to get picked up. I'm not entirely sure if it was picked up on that back, as even more combat's happening.
What is going on? Mei is actually going to use the Condemn to push Evil Zara under the tower, but the heals from Naysayer, they're too big. I mean, you can't get a word in here, Swifty. These teams aren't letting you.
I know they don't want me to speak today. They're silencing me just through combat alone. But like I said, okay, we see that the Heartsteel is not fully completed there. I'm starting to get worried for Syndicate Pepsi here. I do appreciate the gusto. I am a man of gusto myself. And I believe that if you got to make a play happen, you got to make a play happen on the Rift, Ferris. However, there's a point at which you got to pull yourself back, as we do see the Heartsteel completed. It's a big item spike for Skarner. But, you know, there are times in this game where you got to pull yourself back and say, hey, maybe we can't overforce. We got to find our openings, even if they're going to be slim here. This is by no means an over game. However, with that series of events, we've got a 4K gold lead for the side of Omega Gaming, as there is more skirmishing happen up top side, but maybe to no avail here.
The Black Cleaver is now completed for Strangleroot, so going to try and eat through the armor that Stubby has purchased for himself, the Bramble Vest and the Chain Vest. But I don't know, man. That Ornn looks pretty impenetrable right now. Has the level lead on you. I think there's a lot of debate as to who actually wins the lane here between the Renekton and Ornn. Quite the staple top lane matchup. I personally prefer the Ornn side of it. I feel like you can just sit there and chill and then scale for free. And that's kind of what Stubby's doing here. My man is just sitting up top. You know, his lane opponent's TPing and dying, so he can just farm it up. He can wait. He has the TP advantage here for this dragon, although I don't think they're really going to need to exercise that teleport advantage because AI's on the other side of the map taking that Rift Herald.
Yep, AI is on the other side of the map, understanding the game state here and actively making a decision to trade an objective rather than hand over more kills. I think they're doing exactly what they need to, as holy moly, a Skarner ultimate with a flash after it.
That's right. The Impale came through. He shot. Has to use the flash to get out.
Has to use the flash to get out, but you know, I do like that they understand the game state here. They're making trades on the other side of the map. They have to slow themselves down a little bit and say, hey, how do we take the most that we can off the side of the map? Is even more punching and slicing is happening in the top lane. Still just a little bit of trading. On your comment though, Ferris, about the Ornn versus Renekton matchup in the top lane, I do think it's playable for either, and I think, however, the easier execution is on the side of the Ornn. Like you said, pretty easy to sit back in lane. I think there are fewer mistakes that can be made for the side of Ornn. Granted, I'm much less practiced on that top lane matchup myself, but you know, Ornn is a pick that is very safe, can scale insanely well, as opposed to Renekton, who needs to be a bit of a catalyst in these team fights, which I think that drives some of the decision-making for Strangleroot to make that bot lane TP play, right? Understanding that I am a catalyst of team fights. I don't scale as well as an Ornn. I have to make things happen, whereas Ornn has a little bit of an easier time just maybe letting the opponent make those mistakes, right?
Certainly. And we're going to see now the towers have been taken here. The Rift Herald was summoned up by Syndicate Pepsi to drop the tier 3 in the mid lane. So that will at least open up the map a little bit for themselves. The bot lane tier 3 was taken on the other side by Omega Fever. So you can see Evil Zara and Naysayer, they've rotated their way to the mid lane now. What I was going to say about the Grubs earlier was the fact that they've denied the 6 Grubs potentially from Tristana, who historically is very good at taking out those towers. Hold on a second here, because we got some action going on around here in the jungle. What are we all up to here, guys? Sailor's in the middle of 3 people. The Dredgeline will come through and knock him up underneath that tower and force to scurry himself away with just a little bit of HP. We see no fatalities in that skirmish, but it's Omega Fever kind of feeling themselves here in the other team's jungle.
Absolutely, definitely feeling themselves, maybe feeling themselves a little too comfortably for the situation there. I think without Emilio and without that being a Skarner, it is very hard to live there. But a flash left.
God, yeah, there's going to be the rocket jump. The bomb is ticking. I don't think this has the damage though, does it? No, it does not.
Not quite yet.
AI lives.
Not quite yet. Yeah, you got to be careful there if you're Omega Gaming Fever. That was very close to being a relatively big shutdown on 305 Skarner handed over to the Hui. You know, you want to be applying pressure. I love the idea of let's get vision down in the bot side of that jungle. Let's take gold off the map. Take the jungle camps away from the Morgana, who has the ability to clear them very quickly. However, can't overstep. There's still 2 towers in the mid lane. That's still a Hui with the ability to fear. They've still got, you know, a Condemn that can come out of the Vayne. They still got a Root that can come out of the Morgana. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you can quickly turn the tides of the game by handing over big shutdown gold and handing tempo right back to the team that you really are ahead of right now if you're Omega Gaming Fever.
And that exact reason is why I agree with the way that Sailor's positioning themselves in that brush here with the control ward, just waiting for that play that you're talking about, Swifty, to be made. Let's try and make this fight happen. Here's that dredge line. They're trying to look for it, but if Sailor's in the area, they can make that into a 3v3, or maybe from a teleport from Kibaboy, they can make it a 4v4. They're ahead in gold, and they can really accelerate their lead that way. So I like the idea here. From the side of Omega Gaming Fever, there's no Baron on the map just yet, and there's no Dragon either. So you're kind of waiting for plays and opportunities to be made, and you're hoping that the other team missteps. As now let's take a look at Stubby here, who may have misstepped a little bit too much. The Searing Charge will bring him closer to safety, but not close enough. The binding's going to miss, so that is good news for him, but the chains are going to land soon. He's going to be stumped up. D-Shot is now here to finish off this Ornn. The dredge line will connect, give the kill to AI. That's a nice pickup there for Syndicate Pepsi.
Great pickup, great read. You could tell Stubby was trying to get the lane shoved in with the Skarner in the area, who at the time was in the Baron pit. However, just one little bit of a miscomm and one little bit of a mistimed play here means the Skarner ease over the wall to continue the clear, and Stubby is left alone on this Ornn. Gets 3v1'd, but for the side of Syndicate Pepsi, great pickup there, great understanding that, hey, we have an opportunity to get a pick here. They pick it up. They're now going to apply that 6 grub pressure with the Renekton top lane as we see Evil Zara and Naysayer moving up to the top to answer this push.
Well, this is a Renekton with Flash and with Dominus, and that's going to be the rocket jump burned already, but look at the damage from Evil Zara. Here comes the Dominus that's going to come through. Breath of Life used just in case there from Naysayer, but a nice pickup there from the Syndicate Pepsi bot lane as D-Shot just misses on that dredge line. Maybe if it connected, the fight would have started up. But control over the river right now for Pepsi, as they did see 2 people committed to the top side there, but they're making their way down now. The Dragon's going to be started. This is that Chemtech Drake. We're stuck at 1 Dragon apiece between these 2 teams, but I like Syndicate Pepsi's idea here. 5v4, you definitely don't want to try and risk anything. There's not really much for you to get other than 4 people dead and throwing away the whole game, so they're going to back off.
Absolutely agree here. I do like the initial play. They know that the Renekton just went down on the top side and that they showed 2 up there, so it's a 4v3 for the time being. They use that opportunity to get river priority and jungle control. Hey, maybe we get a pick. D-Shot throws out the dredge line, hoping, hey, possibly if we can get this Skarner and turn this back into a 4v4, this might be a fight we can take. The dredge line does not land. They understand that they're in a position where they're not going to win this fight 4v5. They back off. I agree. They're looking for plays, which I think is absolutely what you got to do when you're in the position of Syndicate Pepsi. Let's look for the plays, use the numbers advantages when we do have it. If Omega Gaming Fever is going to send 2 up to the top side, but as soon as that play doesn't really present itself any further, they got to pull back. So they're using their brains here, which is good to see. Looking for the openings that they can find and not over forcing them. As we're seeing Omega Gaming Fever look to move into the top side of the map here.
Yes, they do. Sailor's positioning very aggressively. He wants something to happen here. This looks like a pretty good impale angle here, Swifty. There it is. Forces the flash from Seung Yeon-Yi, and AI unfortunately got hit with that, but goes into the Zanyas, keeps himself safe. Evil Zara down to about 60% HP. A big Quay ultimate comes down. Mei inside of the final hour, trying to use the tumbles to reposition themselves. Dredgeline's going to land on a Naysayer, but he's going to flash away from that one. Mei flashes forward. Can he finish off the first kill of the fight? Everyone is so low. The Call of the Forge God will go wide. Kiba Boy is going to be taken out here by Strangleroot. Flash forward here from Stubby to try and finish off AI, but it's not going to be enough. Syndicate Pepsi, they hold their ground in their own jungle, and they might look towards Baron now.
Unreal set of a few little mechanical abilities there out of the side of Syndicate Pepsi. I am really impressed. That was excellently played. They just really pulled themselves back into a much more comfortable position here. Beautiful R into the Zonia's, or rather the Seeker's Arm Guard out of AI to stall time on what was a gnarly impale and pick on that Hui there. And really excellently played out of Mei. I'm genuinely impressed. The ability to ult and then Q, tumble directly into the stealth, but stay still, waiting for the ability to take a flash Q back over and across the side of that fight. Vayne flew across the side of that jungle so quickly, and the output damage was so well executed, really buying time, waiting for the extended fight. We now see the power of this Vayne with Berserker Greaves and a completed Blade of the Ruined King into a Skarner. This is a 305 Skarner with a Heartsteel completed, with the Bomby Cinder, with the Merc Treads, with the Chain Vest, right? But a Vayne with Blade of the Ruined King, even a Vayne who's behind, can absolutely shred through that champion given the right time. They bought the Vayne the time, they took a great fight, as another one is about to happen, Ferris.
Yes, it is. Sailor thought he found AI, but the Dark Shield goes down. So going to be able to walk themselves out of that situation. And I couldn't agree more with your assessment of the Vayne there. Hold on a second. Sailor hits a two-person impale here. That is about as good as it gets. No Dark Shield that time for AI. No Zonias. So can't save yourself this time around in the same spot where the previous fight happened. And Strangleroot is going to suffer the same fate. That's a 2-for-0 here for Omega Fever to start off the fight. Now Kibaboy going to dash away with the Spirit Rush. And there is really nothing else for Syndicate Pepsi and all for Omega Gaming Fever to head towards the Baron.
We're going to look to start up this Baron. Again, they take nearly an identical fight. However, the numbers advantage was there for Omega Gaming Fever this time, as well as cooldown priority. And now Syndicate Pepsi is trying to make a stop here, trying to apply pressure, get them off of this Baron. We'll see how this fight breaks out.
Here we go. Call of the Forge God's going to land. It's a 5 versus 3, remember, so I heavily favor Omega Gaming Fever in this one. May is into the final hour. The peel is trying to be applied by D-Shot, trying to give the Vayne enough space to go crazy like he's RNG Uzi, but he can't quite do it. It's going to be the full ace now. Actually, the jungler is alive, and the health bars are low, so the recalls are being channeled, and at least they stop the Baron this time.
They do. They stop the Baron attempt, but at what cost? They lose two of their strongest members, or at least late game scaling strongest members, in the Hui and the Vayne. Omega Gaming Fever is going to respect. They're going to back off and say, you know what, we're not going to throw it. But now they have staggered death timers, as we're seeing in under a minute. This dragon's going to spawn. Both teams here are going to want to actively get to the Dragon Pit, actively get their wards down, get their control, maintain priority in both the mid and the bot lane here. And they're going to both send top laners to the top side, but Omega Gaming Fever already has the prio here in the river. It's not necessarily an easy position to approach if you're the side of Syndicate Pepsi, particularly into a Tristana who can push out that mid lane really, really heavily, right? You're obviously going to be on the back foot as Vayne, trying to then catch priority back in that mid wave. As we've got 17 seconds on this dragon spawning, and Syndicate Pepsi really nowhere to be found as Omega Gaming Fever is going to make this setup.
Yes, they are, and they have great control right now. It should just be, from what I'm seeing, the give of this Soul Point Dragon. But AI has found a Dark Binding here onto Kibaboy, and this Ahri can't go anywhere when she's locked up here. Gonna get hit with the stun as well, but the peel is there for the mid laner of Omega Fever, and the Flash Impale is big. They've caught the Hui. That's 2 kills now for Omega Fever. There's the call of the Forge God. Searing Charge to lock up this Vayne. You're not tumbling your way out of this one. It's a 3-for-0. It's the Chemtech Drake, and OF, they feel real good right now.
They are going to go for a coast to coast. Mark my words, Ferris. They immediately recognize the massive play and cooldown timers that they now have. Ability to catch this mid wave, shove it out, run coast to coast. It is a go-to play in my playbook as a shot caller and as a jungler, and they're going to look to start up this Baron, get both buffs in the matter of a minute, and then keep this pressure and this tempo rolling. League of Legends is a game about tempo. It's about putting your foot on the gas when you know you can, and Omega Gaming Fever is looking to do exactly that right now, as this Baron is down to half health.
Yes, it is. No one nearby. AI walking through the jungle. Can't quite get to the Baron in time to even attempt at any type of miracle steal. So the first Baron of the game, that's going to go to Omega Fever. And how much can they get from this? There's still a good amount of standing gold on the map for them to take. As Sailor, you're going to want to be careful, man. You don't got a lot of homies around you, bro. Then now he's stuck in a 1 versus 4. He's going to try and waddle through the wall there, but he's going to be interrupted by a whole lot of CC. The friends are on their way to try and save him, but the Scorpion will drop. And now here's Strangleroot onto Naysayer, but the Fireball kick will keep him at bay. And a nice pickup there to sort of strangle the power of this Baron already.
Absolutely. A little bit of an overstep from Sailor there, as you commented, you know, when that pick happens. You want to be able to apply pressure by hovering on the Skarner here, you know, as a jungler, when you have this Baron buff. However, you can't be overstepping when your team does not have access to bail you out. Syndicate Pepsi recognizes this. They pick up a very big shutdown and a very big kill. They're going to be able to stall this Baron. And like you said, you wondered how effectively this team can use said Baron. There is still obviously a fair amount of standing gold on the map. We still have lane turrets existing in top, middle, and bottom lane right now. However, this isn't a team necessarily with an insane amount of tower taking capability, at least simultaneously across separate lanes. Baron buff is best used when you can impact several different waves simultaneously with it, right? It's why you see the 1-3-1 a lot. It's why you see the 4-1 a lot, particularly why you see TP taken on those laners that go into the side lanes. However, really with the only heavy split pusher or heavy lane mover for the side of Omega Game of Fever being Tristana, they really have to force all of their eggs into one basket here as some damage gets put down onto the Morgana, but maybe nothing's going to happen. Ooh, big bomb though.
Yeah, it was a big one. That was only 2 auto attacks, I believe, that charged up
yeah.
that satchel charge. So you're kind of seeing the damage potential of Evil Zara. And let's watch this turret here. Let's get a good sneak peek as to how much damage they actually do. That is incredible now as we're going to see an engage here. Call the Forge God goes wide. A little bit of a mistimed Skarner pull there. The Impale is going to miss. The Dredge line hits the minion here. Tier 2s in the mid and the bot lane have been acquired here by Omega Fever. They got 45 seconds remaining on this Baron buff. They're waiting for the next wave to show up. But the point that I was going to make is if you look at the Tristana items, that's an upgraded ornament in the Infinity Edge. It's almost 4 items here, full completed items on this Tristana. There is so much damage available here for Evil Zara to work with. And with one person down, Syndicate Pepsi really has no choice but to give away this bot inhib.
Correct. They have to give this up. They lost the way. It's a relatively long death timer now that we're 28.5 minutes into the game. Ari does, and Kiba Boy on Ari does an excellent job of catching that mid wave, understanding that right after that bot lane inhibitor goes down, we pick up the mid wave and mid lane one. They're now rotating to the top side. They've still got a little bit of Baron buff left. They're going to try and get as much out of this Baron buff as they possibly can before it expires. But hey, they're now sitting in a position where they have simultaneously taken out middle and bottom lane inhibitors, both on the same timer, right? They'll be able to use that for the upcoming objectives. A minute on Dragon coming up as this last tower looks to almost go down on the top side and a fight may break out.
Very close to. There's some spells that have been thrown. Hui Ultimate was used. Charm landed onto Strangleroot. Took a little bit of damage. But to be real, Omega has found a lot from this Baron. So they could push their luck a little bit, but this is kind of where you throw the game, where you overstay your welcome. You have a lot of gold that you've just acquired. You want to spend that gold to keep yourself in the lead, and that's exactly what they do. They're going back to base. They're spending that gold. Baron's over. Recuperate. Regroup. Don't greed for this wave, Evil Zara. At least you got a friend in Stubby here to try and protect you, but the stun is going to go down here from Strangleroot. They're using a teleport as well to try and save their 80 carry, but that Morgana damage is going to be more than enough to bring that kill home. Depth charge going to be used onto Stubby. Kibaboy running around with the Spirit Rush is going to get himself a reset, but he's locked down by so much CC, and Strangleroot will close the gap with the flash, and Stubby's the final target here. Maybe I just caster cursed them. I'm so sorry, but a huge pickup for Syndicate Pepsi.
Absolutely massive pickup, and like I was saying earlier, Renekton is not necessarily a scaling pick, but when you give a Renekton time to absolutely do work with a Black Cleaver into your Ornn, into your Tristana, with sort of no answer to it, that is what happens. They do an excellent job buying time. The Morgana goes down, expends the Zonias. However, it buys time for the Vayne to get up there. They pick up those kills. They are now in a position to possibly answer this. We'll see. They may have to catch their mid lane and their bot lane waves. Syndicate Pepsi, as Skarner and Milio are gonna do tiny amounts of damage as they start up this Chemtech Soul Dragon here.
Yeah, the tag team on this Drake here, they're not very lethal. That was about 4k damage in a whopping amount of time, and now it's Syndicate Pepsi that says, hey, what's going on here? We want this dragon too, and there may be a fight for it, but the TPs have come through. Evil Zara has respawned, and they don't get a choice. That's going to be the soul to go down. It was just a leash for themselves. They waited for the damage dealers to show up, and then it was Syndicate Pepsi who saw everyone, the cavalry arriving for Omega Fever, and said, fine, that's it. We're going to give it up. And so a huge permanent buff now in the hands of Omega Fever as they look down the barrel of trying to end this first game.
Absolutely. Chemtech Dragon, I think, is a very, very potent dragon on this team composition. Skarner really likes it. It gives tenacity, gives heal power, especially with having Emilio in your back pocket. It really just amplifies the ability for this team to slow down fights, soak up a lot of damage, and then absolutely punch you in the face between, this massive Ornn and this massive Skarner later in the game. I like the look out of Syndicate Pepsi. Hey, we just picked up some kills. There's a possibility that we can go and answer this thing. It almost appeared for a second as if Skarner and Emilio were just leashing Syndicate Pepsi, but the teleport is expended. Props on Syndicate Pepsi for knowing that they have to catch their waves. The teleport's expended, and they got to let it go.
They tried to do the death bush, but they got spotted out here. Sailor wants this fight, though. Call the Forge God by Stubby used as well. The Impale's going to land onto just D-Shot. He's going to be the focus for the moment. Spirit Rush by Kibba is going to bring him to safety. AR locked up in the middle of everybody with the Zonias and is going to drop immediately out of the stasis now. It's a 5 versus 4. May is flashing to reposition, and that's going to buy him some space here to get some auto attacks down, but the red health bars are overwhelming the team fight, and this looks like Omega Fever have what they need to siege the Nexus and win this one. It's 5 versus 2 for the moment. They're trying to chase down these remaining kills. The super minions are sieging those towers. May has to go heal, but the towers are under siege. You have no time to really go back and heal. Your Nexus is under fire, and this is going to be the end of game number 1, Swifty.
It is good looks out of the side of May there, but unfortunately just not enough time and not enough space to let the Vayne pop off. The Vayne survives the entirety of that fight, just doesn't really have the opportunity to get in there, get those autos off, get that true damage off on these priority targets and these heavy tanks for the side of Omega Gaming Fever. Omega Gaming Fever takes a great fight. They take the victory. They're going to take game 1 in this series here, Ferris.
They certainly are, and they had a pretty good showing overall as a team. I mean, I feel like they were able to accumulate a good amount of gold in the early going. Their skirmishing was definitely very nice. Around maybe the macro standpoint, they made a couple of mistakes, like when they were caught out in the top side after that Baron, they stayed for a little bit too long. But other than that, it was a really good showing here from Omega Fever in this first game. But there were signs of life for Syndicate Pepsi. It wasn't an overall stomp. It wasn't a 20-minute end. They had moments and they had fights where they were doing quite well as a team and able to stop the engagements here of Omega Fever. So I do think that there is great potential here for a game number 3 in this series.
Absolutely, I agree. Obviously, this game was won by Omega Gaming Fever. They had the gold all of the time, basically, except for the beginning of this game, with a few dips and, like you said, signs of life from Syndicate Pepsi to come back, to try and fight back, find those catches. They find some excellent picks later in the game. However, Wall of Diff kind of comes into play at the end here, as even with the picks, the signs of life, as you say, they weren't able to overcome that gold differential. And at the end of the day, Omega Gaming Fever finds enough of those fights, finds enough of those clean wins in those fights to pick up the win here.
They certainly do. And if we're going to give a final point here before we head into break, let's talk into adaptations here. So let's start from the losing side. For Syndicate Pepsi, in your opinion, Swifty, is there anything you change up now in the bans? As we're not in a fearless draft, things can be played again. Is there any problem picks that you would identify here if you were analyzing the game for Syndicate Pepsi?
Oddly enough, I don't know if it's necessarily a compositional issue so much as it might be an executional issue. I really liked the way all 5 of Syndicate Pepsi's players played on each of their champions. However, what I didn't necessarily like, and what I think they can improve on, and might make this game a little bit easier, is if they change their playstyle to be a little bit less skirmishy earlier, right? I think Hui needs a little bit of time. I think Vayne needs a little bit of time. And by the time they took a few too many of these fights, there was already a lot of gold in the side of Tristana, who can really excel and snowball and put the pedal down. However, as it comes for bans, I would like to see something like a Skarner maybe taken off the table. Phase 1. I think their champions are very excellent, but I do think there's so much power in a champion like Skarner, especially when you can pair it with a champion like Ahri mid lane, as we were saying earlier. I'm more curious to see what they take off the table from the side of Omega Gaming Fever, because I really like the compositional ideas that they're bringing to the table here. And I think with a little bit of tweaking of gameplay, this team absolutely can bring it right back and put us to a game 3.
They absolutely can. Well, they're going to go back to the drawing board as we await game number 2. And while we wait, we will head to a short break. And when we come back, we will see what the finish might be for this series. Are we going to get a game 3, or is it going to be Omega Gaming Fever who's going to steamroll themselves to a 2-0 victory to start off their season here in the Titan Conqueror League? Don't go anywhere. We'll be back soon.
town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. Town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul.
Welcome back, Titan fam, and we're bringing you game number 2 between Syndicate Pepsi and Omega Fever here in week 1 of the Titan Conqueror League Fall 2024. If you're just joining us, there's a 1-0 lead right now for Omega Fever in this best of 3. My name is Ferris. I'm joined by Swifty on the caster desk today, and we're ready to see if this is going to be a 3-game series or if Omega Fever have the momentum to take it and just win 2-0.
Absolutely. A really good showing out of the side of Omega Gaming Fever, but to no discredit to the side of Syndicate Pepsi here. They had a lot of good looks towards the end of the game, finding picks, being able to claw their way back. However, at the end of the day, sometimes the wallet gap is just a little bit too much. However, they are certainly not out for the count here. They're going to look to, they're still taking blue side. They're going to look to remain on their side, maybe make a few draft adjustments, a few gameplay adjustments. They're certainly a team that clearly has the executional skills, even from a point of being behind, to find their way and fight their way back. Really excited to see what they bring to the table here, what adjustments they make, if they're going to take things off the table like the Skarner, if they're going to keep a similar sort of composition, pick up some spicy Morganic jungle gameplay again. So really excited to see what they bring to the table for game 2, Ferris.
And I think one of those things might really be, I think you're right in your analysis, is looking at that Skarner pick and identifying that it was the Skarner that was actually starting off a lot of these plays. Those impales were pretty good, running through the jungle, looking for picks. So it might be comfortable here for Sailor, and they might think to themselves, let's take that one away. Another pick might be the Tristana, as they were struggling to keep that contained in the early game. They picked the Vayne. It was a pick that has historically a weaker laning phase, depending on who the Vayne plays into, but they struggled into that Tristana, and it really did snowball for them. 36,000 damage that pick did in game number 1. So I expect maybe them to take a look at the bot lane there and either assess, do we ban the Tristana, or do we maybe just look to have a better lane for ourselves? Because I do believe that Vayne pick was more just a reaction, Swifty, to the double tanks that they drafted.
I agree, and I think it's not an unfounded or a poor necessarily reaction to that Skarner pick. However, like you said, they really played into the hands of Omega Gaming Fever in that bot lane. Tristana has so much early game power, and with Emilio to buffer up and the attack speed and burn, just makes that pick so strong. And we saw Morgana pathing identically to Skarner, basically to match that pressure on the map with that Black Shield, with that root, buy time for the side of Syndicate and their lanes. However, the Skarner just has so much priority, so much ability to be a catalyst of plays, as well as that Tristana just having so much output damage throughout the course of the game. They played into the hands of Omega Gaming Fever, I think, a little bit too much. And so, as you said, I'm curious to see if they do make that adjustment, if they're going to leave Tristana open and maybe have a different answer for it, take the Tristana off the table, try and shake things up. They're certainly not out for the count in the bottom lane. They had great looks. They wanted to be taking fights, and I'm curious to see if draft changes to put themselves in a better position here.
Well, here we go. We're into the draft for game number 2. Like you said, Swifty, it's the same sides for these teams. So it is going to be Syndicate Pepsi running it back on the blue side and Omega Fever here on the red side. And I think maybe for Syndicate Pepsi, they might just need a power pick. And what I mean by a power pick is something that can actually come out with a lead after the first 15 minutes of the game, where last time around it really didn't feel like anyone was ahead and anyone could really propel them to the later stage of the game that they wanted with that Vayne. So this time around, if they can get a pick, whether it's in any lane, it could be mid, it could be top, it could be in the bot lane, they need someone to get ahead. They need somewhere to pool their resources into so that they can transition to a point where they can actually be strong and then start to contest Omega Fever in those later game fights where they were, like you said, Swifty, just wallet gapped at that point.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's a hard thing to come back from, even though they made great steps to do so. It's a hard thing to come back from when you don't necessarily draft any real winning lanes for that early game. Like you said, Morgana has a great ability to match the Skarner, I think, on paper. However, when your Vayne is matched into a Tristana, when your Renekton is matched into a really safe, strong, scaling tank pick like Ornn, and when your Hui sort of just wants to let the lane slowly put money in his pocket so that he can do damage later in these fights, you don't really have any power picks early, like you're saying, Ferris. I'd like to see them bring those power picks, and interestingly enough, Omega Gaming Fever leaves out the Skarner, and we see it taken immediately B1 by the side of Syndicate.
So that's going to be their adaptation there is, well, they could ban this card, but they could also take it for themselves. And they've seen how it works in the last couple of games, so they're feeling pretty good about that. And that's what they're going to take away. If they do get the Tristana, though, does Omega Fever once again but this time around the Hui will end up being an Orianna. So what we're seeing so far is more of like a team fighting style team. Well, they had solid team fight last time around, but with the Shockwave, it gets even better. They can combine that with the Skarner, and they're going for a safe bot lane this time, something that can't be exploited as easily with the Sivir pick, and the ability to have a spell shield makes it easier, plus the wave clear that you have.
Wave clear, spell shield, like you said, movement on your passive as well as your ultimate once you hit level 6. Much safer lane. They're looking, I think, here to not play into the exact sort of losing strategy that they did last time with the Vayne by taking a few too many of those early game fights. But, bring back it to the Skarner pick, to the Orianna pick. They say, if you can't beat it, join it, right? And they're going to take it for themselves. It is a massive catalyst pick here. I love the Orianna joined with it. And to the credit of Omega Gaming Fever, I really like the Udyr as a response here. I think it's a super, super potent pick on this patch. It's flexible in the top lane. It's flexible to the jungle as well. It does a lot of HP percentage damage and is still insanely tanky with that Phoenix into W max turtle stance. It's one of the two stances.
One of the stances.
Into that build. And we're going to see a Soul then come out as right before these second phase bans, and a Nautilus followed.
So good scaling in the back pocket of Omega Fever as well. But this time around, I actually like the mid lane matchup for Syndicate Pepsi. I feel like there is potential for this Orianna to bully around this Aurelion Soul and give Kibbleboy a hard time in the lane and make it difficult for him to actually scale. And then back to our talk about a power pick, something that maybe they can come out of the lane phase with a lead with. I think this mid lane could actually be that. And then you have the Sivir scaling in your pocket. Similar style to the Vayne, but you said it yourself. The wave clear, the move speed that you have tools to stay alive. So I'm already liking the changes that they've made here. And they're actually just going to go for another tank pick in the top lane, whether this is going to be a top Skarner, it was a flex pick, or the jungle Sedge. It's like Syndicate Pepsi are playing the composition that Omega Fever drafted in game 1.
Absolutely. I think they have an understanding that, hey, this may be the tank meta. It might be time to put a lot of people on tank duty. They're taking what looks now to be the Sejuani top. It is viable, it is playable, and taking the Skarner jungle. I like the B1 pick of the Skarner because it is flexible. It obviously can go top lane, like you said. And Omega Gaming Fever sticking with their guns here, picking 3 tanks: the Udyr, Nautilus, even though it's a support tank, as well as the Tahm Kench up top. We're going to get a little bit of a wet noodle battle in the 2v2 top side, which is always exciting for me. I'm a big fan of those wet noodle battles. As we're looking at a relatively similar start here. Looks like Omega Gaming Fever puts a lot of priority into stopping the invade. They did this game 1 on the bot side, and looks like Syndicate Pepsi is sticking with the classic, the 5 points. Can't go wrong with the classic. I'm curious to see what you think about the Pro Comps draft score, Ferris. As opposed to last game, we now have Omega Gaming Fever higher in the draft score at 51.19%, as opposed to Syndicate Pepsi's lead of about the same in game 1 here. Any reasons for that, you think?
I'm going to be 100% real with you, my good friend Swifty. I'm not sure what this is. I would need you to explain it to me. What is a Pro Comps draft score?
Pro Comps draft score is a draft score based on both teams' drafts by one of the sponsors of the league, Pro Comps, who in further weeks there will be even more information coming about, by the way. It's basically a score, a probability of winning based upon the compositions drafted, right? Using data and the likes, fun maths and whatnot. Again, anything can happen. It is League of Legends, and it's also, it's not professional League of Legends. We all make mistakes. So obviously, a game as close as 51% to 48% can go either way for sure. But I'm curious as to possibly why that could be. Maybe it's just the potency of something like a Tristana into a bot lane. But like you said, Sivir Lulu is super, super safe, as we see some fighting immediately.
We do. Level 2 spike here. This could be why that percentage was a little bit higher. D-Shot gets very low. The Lulu now has to play extra careful, but Evil Zara is taking a lot of damage here as well. May just might keep going here. There is going to be the boomerang toss. The flash forward will be followed by Evil Zara's flash. And that's actually going to be a winning 2v2 fight here for Syndicate Pepsi's bot lane. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting to see. Really good discipline and sort of buying time there from D-Shot. Excellently played. Is able to get out alive as some more fighting mid.
Aeolus found Kibbleboy and trying to run away. Going to use the flash, but it's not going to be enough there. Burning the flash and dying. That's got to feel bad. That's going to be the first blood here for Syndicate Pepsi starting things off.
Syndicate Pepsi using the Skarner to great effect, and not the 2v2, excuse me, but the pairing with the Orianna mid lane to great effect, right? The Skarner has so much ability and priority to make plays happen across the map. We're seeing it early from the side of Syndicate Pepsi. Syndicate Pepsi is saying, hey, we're not letting you take this Skarner and walk all over us with it. AI is going to show Sailor, I guess, this game, how they think Skarner should be played. As we're seeing a full clear come out for the Udyr. Udyr has a great ability to full clear with that max percent HP damage on both the Q as well as the R. Phoenix stance and Tiger stance. Already looking at the scuttle here. Skarner, after the gank, is going to finish up that clear. However, is on the wrong side of the map to be able to take that scuttle. As we're going to see Sailor then realize this, move up to the top lane, try and take that double scuttle.
So it's going to be a trade-off between these junglers. It's a quicker clear for Sailor, a double scuttle advantage, but it was that time that Al committed to be able to get that kill in the mid lane for Sungyani's Orianna. So we'll see how well this kill lead can translate. As we have an 80 carry roam right now, Sungyani has to burn the flash, and he's definitely not going to be happy about that, Swifty. He's saying, guys, what in the world is enemy ADC doing here in my lane? And AI saying, hey, I don't know, man, but I'm beating the hell out of him right now. And he's got no barrier, and he's got no flash, and we got him. So you're actually going to be pretty happy that he moved up because we've gotten ourselves another kill. 2-0 Syndicate Pepsi.
A little bit of a wild sequence of events there, but it goes in the hands of Syndicate Pepsi. That's one of those moments in solo queue where the Orianna is spam pinging question marks on why is the ADC in my lane. However, this is a competitive, coordinated game of League of Legends. All of them are in a call. Skarner's able to answer said call, said spam question mark pings. Finds the Tristana caught out. Lulu follows. They're able to pick up the kill. This is now a 1-0-1 Skarner and Orianna as we move into Dragon spawning at 5 minutes, Ferris.
And you can see there on your screen, you just saw the dredge line from Naysayer come through, but the easy spell shield from Mei stops that in its tracks. It's difficult to play into the Sivir Lulu here. And part of the success of Omega Fever was that bot lane lead that they accumulated. As now let's take our looks at the mid lane here. Remember, flash burn from the earlier gank, but Sungyani should be able to just walk this one out. Sailor trying to get involved here, get some good chip damage here, and might just help Kibbleboy push out this wave with no mana.
A good look there on the gank from Sailor. Uses the empowered E to gain, unstoppable on that stun. However, doesn't immediately get off the Phoenix stance for the slow. My understanding of the best way to perform that gank would be to get that slow off immediately and then to follow it up with Tiger Stance autos for the quicker empowered autos with both Phoenix and Tiger Stance sort of simultaneously being active. However, granted, Sungyani was in a position that was safe enough, healthy enough, that that gank may not have gotten a kill anyway, but the applied pressure is always something good for an Asol. Asol's able to get the back off, is able to pick up Amp Tome and what looks to be a Sapphire Crystal. It's going to look to get back into this game and trying to keep scaling. However, we've got Orianna and we've got Skarner both moving into the bottom side of the jungle. This is a potent duo as they're going to try and set up priority for this dragon, and they're already looking at possibly Sailor in bot lane.
Well, they found Sailor here, who has flash to get away from a potential shockwave, but Sungyani is just going to move away because they found a new target, and that's Naysayer. He's out in the middle of nowhere. That dredge line's not taking you to safety. That is kill number 3 for Syndicate Pepsi. They're going to clear away this control ward, and then you have to believe, with the numbers advantage now, going to move towards the dragon.
Absolutely. You take that bot lane kill, you move right into the dragon. Granted, death timers are relatively short here. Nautilus is already back up, running back down to the mid lane, as we're looking to see Omega Gaming Fever possibly take the trade here. However, Skarner, realizing this, can just solo down this dragon. Bot lane is going to get priority, shove that wave in for the side of Syndicate Pepsi, and then Orianna is going to catch that wave mid. Looks like a straight trade. However, trades are meant to be done in a sense that they're going to be relatively even for both sides, but you got to feel good if you're the side of Syndicate Pepsi. You pick up the kill. The dragon is a permanent scaling buff, particularly on a team that wants to sort of have these big late game fights with a Sejuani ultimate, with a Skarner ultimate, with that Ori ball wombo combo over the top, right? You got to feel a little bit better, in my opinion, if you're Syndicate with that play. However, great look from Omega Gaming Fever.
He comes through in the top lane. Stubby is winning this 1v1. He's going to try and get himself to the CC to finish off the kill, but the tongue lash is enough. And I was going to make a point to, if you look at the CS in the top side, this is Stubby really dominating this lane. Now going to deny this whole wave here too. And with the solo kill coming through as well, the Tahm Kench is sort of pulling the weight here for Omega Fever. Is now Sailor. He's been clearing away on this blue buff, but they're a little bit mad about that. They're saying, hey, man, that's ours. Give it back. We're going to take you out. We're bringing the whole squad here to take you guys down and avenge our top laner. Stubby's now caught in the mix as well, forced to flash over the wall to bring himself to safety. The next target will be Kibbleboy. Not quite enough to get the stun into the wall. Has to commit his flash. Naysayers join the party here as well, but I don't think he's too happy about that. He's flashing out too. Everybody flashing away, and Syndicate Pepsi hold their ground.
They hold their ground, Ferris, but they're able to pull off not as many kills, I think, as they were hoping, but a lot of summoners going down. Granted, there is no dragon spawning for 3 minutes 45 seconds. However, the flash cooldown is 5 minutes. There will not be flashes for a lot of these members on the side of Omega Gaming Fever moving into the next dragon. We'll try and see if Skarner and Orianna are going to pull the same thing for the next dragon, apply that pressure, apply that priority, and make that happen. And they're now looking at an Omega Gaming Fever comp with not a lot of flashes. Taking it back for a second to the Tahm Kench matchup, I actually hadn't noticed this, and I'm glad you pointed it out. Stubby really pulling weight, understands this matchup, and is ahead clearly both in kill department and the CS department. Stubby, maybe sees Syndicate applying a lot of pressure on the opposite side of the map, but Tahm Kench refuses to succumb to culinary degradation here. Stubby putting in a lot of work. Great job using the flash and being disciplined to get out there and trying to make the rotate happen to defend his teammates. I'm excited to see how Stubby applies this pressure further into the Sejuani as we get into the rest of the early game and into mid game here.
Might be a potential threat later on once those items start rolling through, and then it might be Sung Yoni, it might be Mei saying, hey man, I'm throwing these shots into the belly of this TK. Nothing's happening, dude. He's still licking me to death. What's going on? So we'll have to wait and see how that lead can be leveraged, like you said, Swifty. And another lead that we can talk about here, if you take a look at the mid lane, is 2 kills plus about 15-20 CS here for Sung Yoni. We talked about it in the draft, the fact that the Orianna might be able to bully this Aurelion Soul out of the lane phase, make his life difficult on the way to his late game dream. And that's exactly what's happening right now too.
And what's most impressive to me about it is we've seen the Orianna move with the Skarner and rotate with the Skarner a fair bit. And a lot of times what you see out of that is you're sacrificing your CS advantage on the opponent. You'd expect to see possibly an Orianna make a lot of roams, make a lot of movement, and possibly have the A-Soul up in farm at the sort of trade expense.
Devour. Stubby on the verge of another solo kill here. Nicely timed, but not nicely timed enough. The stun goes through so low underneath the tower, but Sailor's saying, hey, bro, this looks like a free kill to me. He's going to run, but enough space has been bought here. Strangleroot dying to that Phoenix stance here, and they're just going to wait to push this wave, and that's what they need to do. The next wave is going to come through. Strangleroot actually going to be able to walk their way out of this one.
They were fishing. They were fishing as hard as they could for that kill, but they're not able to quite find it there. However, they get the wave in, like you said. They're able to apply pressure. Sailor's going to invade, take some of the topside camps off the map, use this Tahm Kench's lead to claw back a little bit for this Udyr. The Udyr has a really, really good ability to clear, whereas the Skarner does not. It's something that Sailor really should be leaning into, really should be looking for these invades to minimize this gold differential, and actually is doing it to relatively good success here. We see a 67 CS versus 89 CS advantage in the favor of Sailor on the Udyr, right? While this champ isn't necessarily a scaling champ, being able to move into the mid game with some heavy active items here as
Kibbleboy's been caught out. That's a shockwave. That's an impale. The Sky's Descent comes down, but it's not the big ult that you want. Sailor tried to save his buddy as well. Naysayer's here too. The Dredge Line plus, the depth charge will go down onto Sung Yoni, knocked up underneath the tower, used the flash to get away, and very low now is Sailor. They're winning this 2 versus 3. Excellent work from the Syndicate Pepsi duo here. And the play may continue with a tongue whip from Stubby, but this might just be the 3 grubs now for the side of Syndicate Pepsi.
That is the power of that mid-jungle duo that I was really excited to see this game. Syndicate Pepsi understands the duo and the strengths of it. They're pulling off these fights to excellent standard, in my opinion. I love the Skarner Impale to start the fight off, drag towards the Ori, the discipline on the Ori to hold the ultimate, right, to layer the CC, to then have the discipline on the Skarner to hold the E, to then layer the CC. Aurelion Sol didn't play the video game for about 7 seconds there, Ferris. It's excellent discipline from the side of Syndicate Pepsi. They play out the 2v3 to perfection. They pick up themselves some kills.
Here goes Evil Zara. Flash forward, Buster shot. Not enough damage. May will be safe under the tower. And the flash committed here from the side of Evil Zara. Stubby's now in a bit of trouble. Sailor's running for his life, trying to save his top laner from death, but he's not going to be successful. Can he get the trade back, though? Yes, he can, and is going to continue here onto AI. But going to scurry their way out of this situation. And Sungyuni's in the area, too, but Sailor should be safe now, seeing that the Orianna is arrived.
Great look from Stubby there. Try to get the eat off, salvage some sort of play that looked doomed to start. However, just isn't quite tanky enough there to live long enough to be able to get that full play off. However, great job from Sailor. Picks up a kill there. Is able to try and get some damage off on the Skarner, which in that 1v1, I favor the Udyr every day. The percent max HP damage already with the Leandries on the table. However, there is no CC left in the tank, or at least hard CC to stop that Skarner E from pulling AI to safety there.
Certainly not, and we're going to see on our minimap, Naysayer's on the flank, TP coming through as well. The ultimate is going to be used, Call of the Hunt, and Mei is going to block that depth charge with the spell shield, and they're just going to run their way out of this play. And now, potentially, as AI gets involved now, going to try and stun up Stubby here, going to be successful in doing so. Mei has to stay back, though, because they are very low, but there is a lot of red HP bars. Here's a big ult coming through from Kiba Boy, and AI's the target, but that was a huge shockwave there from Sungyuni. That might just be the way to turn the fight now for Syndicate Pepsi. Now it's a 3 versus 3, 2 people down from either side. Mei is trying to get out of this situation, flash away, but there's the kill now for Sailor, who's running amok inside of this fight. Strangleroot is going to get the trade. Evil Zara jumps through, going to use the Buster Shot to push him away from the CC. That's not exactly what you wanted, but nonetheless a close fight here in the river around the Cloud Drake.
An unfortunate little miscommunication there. That otherwise is a dead Sejuani. That's one of those conversations you have in VOD review and you leave till after the game, but hey, it happens to the best of us.
Oh my goodness. Heat check moment, but that is no heat. There was no heat involved in that. It is a cold barbecue with no gas. Evil Zara oversteps.
Absolutely oversteps, over rocket jumps, if I may add.
Yes.
Just a little bit too overzealous. I'm like I said in game one, for any of those watching, I'm a fan of Gusto. That was Gusto. However, Gusto needs to be done with a little bit of your brain turned on. I think just a little bit too much there. You hope it's not a little bit of a tilted play based on the miscommunication from the CC layering with Stubby. You hope it's just a little bit of a misgauge there, as they're going to look to start up that Rift Herald on the top side. Skarner is just going to take the second Drake.
It's one of those things where you're sitting there watching this Lulu stepping up to you, and you know you could take that Lulu, but that Lulu's just looking at you the wrong way, and you're saying, hell with it. I don't care who's behind the Lulu. I'm sending a message here, and then you kind of just run it down. Might have been one of those situations. Can say that's happened to me a fair few times in my games, but the trades have come through. This is 2 Drakes now down for Syndicate Pepsi on their way to a potential soul later on. They've had the pretty good bot lane control for the majority of this game. It's a 20 CS lead for Mei, just constantly shoving the wave in, and there's no opportunities for these fights to come through because of the spell shield. So they're feeling pretty comfortable down there. And now with Mei towards the mid lane, they're looking to crack the mid lane tier 3.
Yeah, based on the last fight, which was sort of swingy and not terrible for either side. Had some great looks on either side. There's another fight speaking out.
Yes, this is a fight. It's very one-sided. Sailor and Stubby together. They get the kill, and now they send the charge down. This is really nice, and the pressure on the other side.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, this is not over even by looking at the scoreboard, right? You look at the scoreboard here, you bring up the Orianna CS advantage, the 5 kills to 1, or 5 kills and 1 death, rather, to 0 and 3 for the A-Soul. You look at your 4-1-6 Skarner, and you say, we might be losing this game pretty handedly, but you look at the gold, and you look at the plays that Omega Gaming Fever is making on the map, they're certainly not out for the count. One could even argue that they might be in the driver's seat in half of the map here. Sailor and Stubby proving to be an absolutely potent duo on these 2 tanks. Tom Kench doesn't even look like a tank with the amount of damage coming out from that Heartsteel and that froggy tongue. I'm really impressed by the way they're playing. They're clearly not out for the count. They're trying to make plays happen across the map, and they're punishing Strangleroot, I think, for a weaker tank pick in the top lane.
That they are. The froggy tongue, man. It's OP. You can't underestimate it. It'll get you. And it's certainly, yes, it's certainly been getting Strangleroot in this one. Strangleroot's not been strangling many things, but give them some time. Like you said, it's a close game, Swifty. The gold, it's still in favor of Syndicate Pepsi, but it's very close. still could swing either way. And now let's take a look here at Sung Yunyi. Oh my goodness, my friend, you were not aware of Sailor here, and there's the depth charge that's going to follow him all the way and knock him up, but it's a great shockwave. Dredgeline connects, but there's no follow-up here from the Udyr just yet. Sung Yunyi now uses the flash, gets the movement speed. That was close for the mid laner of Syndicate Pepsi.
Very close to the mid laner of Syndicate Pepsi, but also for Sailor. Great job turning it around as another fight's breaking out in the bot
Oh my
lane.
gosh, Stubby, you're getting your karma now. You called your jungler, now it's Strangleroot's turn. They're saying, yeah, man, how does it feel, buddy? Get impaled. How does it feel to be taken out like this? It's taken a whole lot of time, but they finally get it, and they can start pressuring the bot side of the map.
They can, and for as much pressure and getting beat up as we saw Strangleroot on the Sejuani, certainly not out of this game. 3-3-1, even down a little bit of CS, but not too much. 3-3-1, still absolutely a tank and a threat, particularly when paired up with the other tank threat in this game. Skarner is certainly able to take down a TK in a 2v1 situation, as they're going to look to bite back on the other side of the map here, as Omega Gaming Fever is going to make an answer.
They're going to try and catch Strangleroot. They really don't like these top laners, do they, Swifty? And oh, look at the TP was committed as well. That's how ready the side of Syndicate Pepsi was, ready to protect their top laners. They're skirmishing it out here in the bot side. The tier 2 is what's up for grabs. Is a flash forward from AI. That was a little bit aggressive there, my friend. Does he use the impale? He does not. Doesn't even have it up and available. Teleports are coming through. No one has died just yet. But it looks like Omega Fever wants to continue this fight, but the dredge line goes wide. But check the long flank here. Here comes Sailor, but he has to be careful he doesn't get overwhelmed by too many people there. The Polymorph's going to come through, prevent the stun from going down onto D-Shot. Excellent job from the Lulu there. And the ball will keep them safe as Stubby tries to join up in this fight. Not going to find the knock-up onto anyone, but he's keeping them at bay for the moment. Very low HP bars here on AI, and that's going to be the first kill. Stun will come through from the Sky's Descent. They continue the play. Sailor is waiting around in this bush, waiting for someone to step up. But it's going to be Omega Fever that are going to take that 1-for-0 and potentially leverage this next Drake.
Absolutely. I really like the slow play there out of Sailor. Like you said and called it, it was almost as if you were right in his ear. You caught that he couldn't necessarily step right in as, oh, no more fighting. Okay. It's almost like they don't want me to talk again. But I like the discipline, like you said, at a Sailor. Knows, hey, I have pressure to apply here. We have a sort of side angle and a cutoff angle, but can't overstep without the team. Has to wait for Stubby to get in there. They're able to get the empowered Phoenix stance off onto the Sejuani. The damage comes through just enough to take that tank out, and they are now in a position where they're pushing this bottom lane out as Baron is, or not Baron, excuse me, as Dragon is spawning in 10 seconds.
Strangleroot wants a fight. Kibble Boy wants nothing for it. Now, they do have to be careful. There's a lot of Syndicate Pepsi members towards the top of this river here. They could collapse onto the rest of Omega Fever if they overstep towards Strangleroot, but for the majority of team members from Syndicate Pepsi are here. No one's around. They didn't take their resets, did Omega Fever, so this will be Soul Point now. They're feeling pretty good about this. Is Syndicate Pepsi. One more to go before that Chemtech Drake is in, or that Chemtech Soul, rather, is in their hands.
It's funny. It's another Chemtech Soul in tank meta, which I think is super potent. Interesting to see that. I think that's funny odds, to say the very least. However, I wanted to point out that it was a great play by the side of Omega Gaming Fever. They were able to get the numbers advantage. They push out that side lane. However, they make one mistake, and that mistake is neglecting mid lane wave. Silver's able to walk that wave up on a champion that pushes incredibly proficiently. And Nautilus and Tristana are forced to go back to the mid lane to catch it. They are now at a numbers disadvantage, particularly one where one of their big damage dealers, even if it's not at this point in the game yet, in Tristana, has to go back to catch a wave with her support, and they sort of lose out on possibly being able to prevent Soul Point, like you said here. Just one little mistake from their side that maybe was avoidable, but then again, with death timers not being crazy long yet, at 20 minutes, Syndicate Pepsi is able to sort of quickly get back on the map. I think they understand, made a great play with the Sivir pushing mid. They understand how to force themselves back on that objective, and they do it rather well. And again, I'd like to point out, this is under a 1k gold differential here at this point. This is 200 gold now. There was a point in this game where it was 2k for the side of Syndicate Pepsi, as we're trying to see picks happen, but to no avail here with the Skarner on the Aesol.
And the Evil Zara gonna get some trading. It's very hard to catch that Sivir. And it's at this point, when the gold is this even, that there is going to be a fight very soon that's going to tip the scales, or maybe even just a skirmish with the way this has been going, because these teams like to scrap it out. For the side of Syndicate Pepsi, as Let's hold that thought now as AI's been caught up in the middle of a whole bunch of people, but that Impale is good onto Kiba Boy, and he's very low, had the big ultimate available, but cannot use it inside of the Death Realm. Naysayer's the next target. That's a 2 for 0. I said there could be a massive fight, or at least a skirmish that could break open this game. Well, the Baron is now up and available here for Syndicate Pepsi to take, although the jungler in Sailor for Omega Fever is still alive.
We are seeing, however, Tristana do the correct play here, who was already on the mid lane wave. Get this mid push out. Sometimes the best thing you can hope for, if you're not hoping for a steal, is to take gold back off the map for what it will inevitably be a gold empowering play for the side of Syndicate Pepsi with this Baron here.
Sailor has flash, Sailor has and he kills the Baron! And they get the Devour over the wall to bring him to safety. Over the wall goes Syndicate Pepsi to try and get something back after this play. The Wild Growth is used to keep Strangleroot alive. Are you serious? Sailor, you beast of a player. That was as gorgeous as it gets.
Unbelievably gorgeous. It's being a jungler, that just warms my heart. Someone check that isn't Canyon playing on that PC. Unbelievably well done. Excellently done out of Stubby with the eat and the pullout. Both of them survived that. That is insane. Really well performed and pulled off. You hate to see it if you're Syndicate Pepsi. However, certainly not out of the game yet. This is still barely a 1k gold differential game. It's a little bit of a setback, but a minor one at that, Ferris. But if you're Sailor and you're Omega Gaming Fever and you're Stubby, you're patting yourselves on the back for that one. That's a really good feeling, as they actually now sit in the gold lead for what I believe is the first time in this game, Ferris.
Those are game-winning plays that you are all witnessing at home. These are plays that save your game. These are plays that win your game. There is so much gold that's available and up for grabs that Omega Fever can acquire with this Baron, a situation that they were not going to get if it wasn't for the heroics of Sailor. And let's see how effectively they can use it. And they've had some practice with this buff so far in this series. They had it a couple times in the previous game, and they could potentially be looking to make a play here on Sung Yoni, who very intelligently steps away from that deadly tri-brush.
Very intelligent indeed. Sailor was looking for it. I think Oriana could smell something lurking in the shadows. Backs up, is not going to get themselves killed. However, AI is now on the flank here, as it's only 3 members from Omega Gaming Fever, as this fight may start here, Ferris.
Yes, it will. The Impale is going to go wide. There's TPs available right now for Omega Fever, and they are going to commit them. Sailor is going to be the first target. He's going to stun up May, who's trying to put the DPS down to take out the jungler here from Omega Fever, and they're going to be successful in doing so. 850 gold will go the way of Strangleroot, and that shockwave there from Sung Yoni was all that Syndicate Pepsi needed. That's the full ace. Are you serious? After those heroics, things are turning on its head once again.
Unbelievable, unreal. I think Omega Gaming Fever realized for the first time in this game they might be in the driver's seat. They start to put on pressure, however, they don't do it with the full squad. I'll remind viewers to look at the scoreboard here. Currently, and this is no discredit to the rest of the members of Omega Gaming Fever, but currently this is sort of a one-man DPS team. There is not a single kill on the Aurelion Soul or their Tristana. Syndicate Pepsi realizes this, realizes the numbers advantage, makes the cutoff, takes out the threat of the Udyr with the Leandries, that percent max HP burn, finds that pick, follows up with an unbelievable Oriana ultimate, finds the ace, and they are now looking to clean this soul up, pick it up for themselves, Varus.
Yes, they are. There's no one here to contest them. The whole of the team here finishes off the blue buff. Now they can walk towards the dragon and get this Chemtech soul for themselves. They are set up now. They have the gold lead, 3,000 in their favor. They have a 7-1 Oriana working their way to what I would believe would be either a Shadow Flame or a Rabadon's Death Cap, a huge item spike, a Sivir working towards the Infinity Edge. And it's tough. I think you very nicely pointed out the fact that there's no kills on the carries of this Omega team. So they're really struggling here in this matchup, and they're going to be scraping to try and make some plays happen to bring them back into this game, but it might start right here with the pick onto Seungwini, but there's going to be a teleport to try and help her out, but they are going to drop, and now Strangleroot is stuck in a 1 versus 2, but is taking this fight right now. They want it because the cavalry is here, but there is no Sivir just yet. Way back at the inhibitor towers is May, so there isn't a ton of damage here. It's 2 tanks and a Lulu, but Naysayer is going to be the target. The rest of the Omega team is going to run away and give that kill over. Naysayer will be the sacrificial lamb.
Sacrificial Lamb, however, you gotta value that if you're Omega Gaming Fever, and props to Stubby and Sailor here, who are absolutely trying to make anything happen on the map. I think they have a full understanding that they are the catalysts for their team this game. They are the ones who have been making every single play happen, right? This Udyr is most of the damage at this point of this team composition. They find a pick on the mid laner. They have to give up their support for it, but you've got to feel good about that trade, right? They're certainly not out for the count, even after a about 4K gold swing back over to the side of Syndicate Pepsi here. I'm curious to see, and I'm excited to see more of these picks come through. However, as this game progresses, Udyr's damage is going to fall off. And like we said before, there aren't any kills yet or massive gold or item advantages in the pockets of Tristana and Aurelion Sol. Those need to come online if you're Omega Gaming Fever. This Udyr falls off the later the game goes. There's percent max HP damage there for most of the game. However, the tankiness will outscale this Udyr. Something's got to happen for the Tristana and the Aurelion Sol, and I'm curious to see if Sailor realizes that and maybe tries to get them some kills and gold in their pocket. As they're looking to siege mid here at Syndicate Pepsi. TPs.
Sailor on the flank. They're TPing in. The Udyr has to be careful, though, as, AI's gone a little bit too far forward. The CC underneath the tower. The Impale is going to go wide. His Strangleroot is going to jump in with that Arctic Assault as well. Now, Kiba Boy hovering over that terrain is going to join the party as well. And no one is going to lose a member. There really has to be a fight for the Fever where they collect these shutdowns. They need one big fight. They need one ace, similar to what Syndicate Pepsi got on the bot side, and that would bring them back into the game if they get those kills that they desperately need onto their carries. Get that fourth item in for the Ace-Soul. Get the IE onto your Tristana, but Mei is feeling themselves. Mei is going crazy. The first kill, the second with the wild growth from the Lulu. You're not getting your miracle fight anytime soon, are you, Omega Fever? Because this Sivir is looking for a potential pentakill, but no, it's going to be Sungyoni to pick up the fourth one. Sailor running for his life, using the blast cone to get out. They're not even going to chase him. The pings are onto the mid towers. The death timers are long. They might be able to end.
I was almost going to say before the fight, watching the Tristana previously under their mid lane tower hit the Skarner as a little bit of punching's happening. Is this going to be...
E-shot. Well, they canceled the back, and they died for it. But can they get the win because of that? Is this the worthy sacrifice? It looks like it could be. 5 seconds to go on Naysayer, 4 seconds to go on Kibaboy. They're hitting onto the Nexus. You have to believe they have more than enough to just focus this down and win the game, and that is exactly what they're going to do. We said it was possible for a Game 3, and that is exactly what we are getting in our first matchup here in the Titan Conqueror League.
Taking it all the way in the best of 3. Props to Mei for taking things into their own hands there. I think there was a realization that this Tristana does not have the damage with a Mortal Reminder, a Kraken Slayer, and an Ivori Quick Blades. Not the same damage that I do. Puts on the carry pants, slaps some kills out on the board, is able to put themselves in a position, Syndicate Pepsi, to push to end the game. And they close this one out, looking to put us at match point here. Actually, putting us at match point here, rather.
That they did. And that was a overall, from pretty much every single player on the side of Syndicate Pepsi, a better game. That looked more confident from them. They were making plays in the early game. They adapted in the draft as well. They picked the Sivir, which was way more difficult to play into for the Tristana than the Vayne was, and ended up doing double the damage that the Tristana was able to do. So the draft adaptations, the adaptations in the play, they still had some hiccups around the top side. We identified that the Udyr and the Tahm Kench were having their way for a little bit, but overall they were able to pull through and bring it to a game number 3. So now we're looking ahead to this Game 3. It's sort of Omega Fever in the position that Syndicate Pepsi was in the last game. What are your thoughts this time around, Swifty, on maybe the things that Omega Fever lacked this time?
I think both teams have shown proficiency on a pick, which I think is pretty pick ban in this meta, and that is Skarner. I love Sailor's answer to it. I love the Udyr response. Clearly, it was effective, pulling out 26k damage, which was more damage than any member individually from the side of Syndicate Pepsi, I'll add. However, on a non-scaling pick that does fall off, without the ability to translate that lead to your actual carry members, to your late game scalers, Tristana, Aurelion Sol, it's not enough, in my opinion, to justify leaving that one on the board. We'll have to see what sides are selected for Omega Gaming Fever and Syndicate Pepsi. Omega Gaming Fever, having lost, will have side selection moving into Game 3. However, you got to think, if you're both teams here, whichever team has the B1 pick, is it worth leaving this thing on the board? It is so potent in any composition. It was played exquisitely with the Orianna, and even in cases where we saw, I think, a few of those ultimates go wide in some of those last fights, it doesn't matter. It provides so much CC, so much sustain in fights, a fair amount of damage. It doubled the damage of the Tristana, tripled the damage of the Aurelion Soul. I think it's such a potent pick. I think it needs to be taken off the board, and I think that's going to open up a lot of avenues for them to say, okay, what did we win in game one with, right? What sort of composition allowed us to put ourselves in a winning position? And then I think if you're Syndicate Pepsi, you say we might not get the Scarter if we end up blue again. But yeah, really excited to see what they bring to the table. Both teams have had to adapt. I'm curious to see now how Omega Gaming Fever can adapt.
Well, we're going to have to see that. Will they sink or will they swim? We're going to a game number 3. It is now do or die. No more chances for either of these teams. They're getting their reps in for this first matchup here in week number 1. This is the Titan Conqueror League. We will be back with game 3 between Syndicate Pepsi and Omega Fever after this very short break. Don't go anywhere. And it comes down to this. We are basically down to a best of one between Syndicate Pepsi and Omega Gaming Fever here in the Titan Conqueror League, week number 1, fall 2024. If you're just joining us for this final installment of this best of 3, my name is Ferris. This is Swifty, and we are ready to get into it and seeing who is starting off their split 1-0.
Absolutely ready, Ferris. Two really banger games, in my opinion. A lot of skirmishing early, mid, late, a lot of clawing back, a lot of looking for picks. This has been a bloody matchup so far in these first two games here, with excellent draft sort of adaptations as we've gone on from the side of Syndicate Pepsi. I'm curious to see then how Omega Gaming Fever can take that moving into this game 3 here. And like you said, it's a best of one now. This is a sudden death matchup. You got to bring your best cards to the table. You got to learn as much as you can from the first two games, what power picks there are, what really, moved mountains these games. I think there's a handful of them for both sides. We saw Tristana game 1 absolutely wreck house. Udyr game 2, really put a lot of pressure on the board. Stubby on the Tom Kench top. The Skarner for both Sailor and Alvis. Both games really effective. The Oriana, another huge one. I think there's a lot on the table here that we can see pulled from, and I'm really curious to see what remains, what changes, how they change things up and move into this best of one sudden death.
So let's talk about these picks then, and more specifically the Tristana, because the Tristana there was a really important pick for Omega Fever. It was the reason that they were able to get so much early game power. And then they went so far as to blind pick the Tristana in game 2. And that didn't really work out for them. They ran into the Sivir Lulu lane and they struggled. So what is the change here for Omega Fever? Obviously, they might, instead of blind picking this, maybe wait. Or do they blind pick something else, maybe go for something that isn't necessarily so reliant on a dominant lane phase that could go blow for blow with the Sivir and scaling, like something that, like a Jinx or something like that. What is your take on this?
I think it's a fantastic question. I think you have a lot of options at your disposal. I don't think there are necessarily, I don't think there rather is a necessarily single right option. I think, like you said, game 1, absolutely potent power pick. It kind of just bullied the Vayne Nautilus out of lane with the Milio paired up with it. However, we saw the response from Syndicate Pepsi, game 2, with the Sivir Lulu, a really safe lane, but also a lane that they were able to apply really good pressure and turn around fights with, right? The Tristana was significantly less effective that game. I will remind both of us and viewers that the Tristana was picked on the red side by Omega Gaming Fever both games within the first 2 picks. And I'll also remind viewers that this is a flex pick. This is something that can go in the mid lane. So I think it's entirely possible that we don't necessarily see this completely dropped off the board for a great team fight scaler, like you said, Jinx. I think it's possible that they leave themselves open the option to pick it early again. We've seen it picked early by them and used effectively, but maybe allow themselves to be flexible with it a little bit more. I think there's a possibility that you could put that Tristana into the mid lane, into the Orianna, and maybe hold that mid or that ADC pick to later in the second phase of the draft here. I think that gives themselves options. It's clear to me that both teams here have flex picks. We saw the Sejuani Skarner in this last game for the side of Pepsi, Syndicate Pepsi. I think it's a possibility that maybe we see it used to better flex, effect here as we're going into the draft right now.
Absolutely, yeah. Using that so that they're not so one-dimensional then off the hop would be definitely good for them. And another thing is for Omega Fever, they had a very successful top side. We talked about the fact that it was Sailor and Stubby that got such a big lead, although their champions weren't the greatest come the later portions of the game when their damage started to fall off. They needed those kills on their carries and they just didn't have it. So potentially if they put a little bit more scaling or a little bit more safety and more attention to the top side, maybe give Stubby a pick that he can really take over on, could be a strategy here for Omega Fever as well, because if they're winning those top lane situations often and they feel confident in that 2v2, this could be another potential avenue for them to attack in this third game, as we see Syndicate does not want to deal, or actually Omega Fever rather, does not want to deal with that Sivir again, and they're going to take that away in the first round.
And Syndicate likewise does not want to deal with the Skarner. It's come to fruition. I think teams are realizing the power of this pick. It won both games with both teams here. They're taking it off the board, Syndicate Pepsi. However, Omega Gaming Fever, like you said, they had a Sivir ban of their own. Maybe they're looking to pick up this Tristana again and said, we don't want to see the Sivir and match it into that. It's too safe, doesn't let us get online and get on the board with it. And they're going to take the Udyr B1, which was absolutely powerhouse material for Sailor. And the Amumu response. Do you have any thoughts about that matchup, that jungle matchup?
Well, Udyr likes to run around a lot, and Amumu doesn't let you do that.
Yes.
So there is a window of opportunity for Amumu with Curse of the Sad Mummy to lock down an Udyr and then bring him down if he's the primary target, or they may just ignore him altogether. It could act as more of a peel, depending on what is going to be the pick there in the bot lane for May. But I like the Amumu overall. The past couple patches, he's been really strong. He's very reliable. It's a very easy pick to pull off with how much value Curse of the Sad Mummy can bring. So I don't think it's a bad response, but it looks like Omega is going to be doubling down here. They think, okay, now the Sivir's banned away. Let's take this Tristana. Let's run it back. What do they have next? They have a Jinx. It's a good pairing, but this is something, Swifty, that's more vulnerable now.
Absolutely more vulnerable, particularly in the early game with Emilio. Like, this is a lane that is susceptible to Udyr gank, susceptible to hooks, the Tristana rocket jump. I guess we're gonna have to see if Omega Gaming Fever feels more confident in this lane, into the Sivir lane. They felt not confident enough to get rid of the Sivir. And I'd like to comment, it's almost like a lot of our draft commentary is coming to fruition this game. We've seen the Skarner taken off the board. We saw the Sivir ban. They're answering with the Tristana into a lane that they feel more comfortable with. I like seeing the Udyr and the Amumu picks with Skarner taken off the board. I think these are two incredibly potent junglers. Percent max HP, AP damage, tank junglers with CC in their kit, I think are super potent right now. We're going to then see mid laners for both sides taken off the board. And the Cassiopeia picked up R4. Spicy pick here. What do you think about Cass, Varus?
Well, this is what I was going to say with the Amumu and the Cassiopeia. It feels like they are just saying hell no to this Udyr to make his life so difficult. Because as Udyr, if you want to take out this Cassio, you're walking into a potential petrifying gaze. You're going to have to dip back and forth and do your best Faker Riven impression to try and dodge away from it. So it gets tough for Sailor to play in this game. However, now there's a little bit more options for them to play with. They have a better matchup for their Tristana. They have another scaling mid laner, something that has an easier time in the lane in the Azir so much than the Aurelion Soul. So the pressure on Sailor's back might not be so big, but I like the idea here. But I do think now that the Cassio is going to struggle into the long range that Azir has.
Yeah, the Azir long range and that long range engage can be scary for Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia obviously has a root, but sometimes it's really hard to react to, particularly if you're not within range or have the vision to be able to react to that. Like you said, I really like the response out of Syndicate here. They're saying, "No, you're not going to run around. It's how you sort of beat us on that Udyr last game, or at least beat us for portions of the game with that Udyr last game." And again, I want to actually bring light to the tanks picked top lane. They're going back to their guns. I was curious to see, like you said, if they would put Stubby after his last game's performance on something a little bit with more priority and with a little bit more agency. However, looks like they're returning to the tank matchup. They believe in the Tristana, they believe in the Azir, and they're going to look to close it out by getting that Trist ahead.
Oh my god, it's a broken Nexus. Did you guys see that? The game's over. That's it.
No,
well,
that's it.
Congratulations to
Nobody
you. No,
wins.
I'm just kidding. That was funny. The Nexus is just broken there. But whose Nexus was it, though?
We'll find out in however
That's
many
right. In game number 3. And this is where it all comes down, is this game right here. And we're not going to get the stack this time from Omega Fever is actually the team that was doing that. But let's look at the draft score. Now that I'm aware of how this excellent tool is used now that you so kindly informed me there, Swifty, look at the percentage here, 60% for Syndicate Pepsi. What's going on there?
I'm actually, I will be honest, I'm a little bit surprised it's this high, but I do think your commentary on the response to sort of the Udyr and the Tristana mobility here in these fights, I think is a big thing. I think Amumu is a super potent pick. Granted, Udyr is a great pick too, but I think the Amumu is a fantastic response into it. I don't think this Udyr is going to have as nearly as easy of a time as, say, the Azir would into this Cassiopeia. I think the neutralizing and the sort of nullifying compositional identities of Syndicate Pepsi here are what's making that score significantly higher. But again, this is a game of League of Legends. Anything can happen. So I'm curious to see if Omega Gaming Fever can say, screw you, Pro Comps, and show us that maybe Pro Comps isn't always right.
And I think what might be a key factor to their success is playing fights across the map in bursts of a couple people. So small skirmishes is what I mean by that. And that way you avoid the team fighting prowess of an Amumu. Oh, Amumu's on the other side of the map. Let's make a play cross map here so I can avoid all that CC if I'm Sailor or if I'm Evil Zara. And just play more skirmish oriented. That might be the way around those heavy CC tools that Syndicate Pepsi has at their disposal. And then from the other side then, you try and force 5v5 fights all that you can, especially when you have a champion like Jinx and all you need is one reset for her to just take over the fight. There's massive value in a Runon's Hurricane here for Mei in this game, so pay attention. If they can get out of that lane phase, this bot lane duo here, it'd be really good for them, but here comes Sailor.
Sailor is looking to move in this Tri-Brush. I think trying to check based on posture if the vision's here.
And D-Shot is going to get hooked up. That's going to start the playoff. Made forced to use Flash. The Buster Shot will chip him down to 20% HP. And that is almost, well, that's both Flashes burned here on the bot laners of Syndicate Pepsi. Sailor's going to continue this, but Alvis has the smite. The bandage toss will go down, and Sailor's without his friends for the moment, but the Dredge Line will connect onto the Amumu. Look at the damage from the Tiger Stance. It's incredible. And the first blood will go to Kiba Boy, and Mei
There's
with
no flash on Jinx.
Going to use the barrier, but I think Evil Zara has the range, and this is the start that Omega Fever wanted as Naysayer hooks into the tower, but will be able to walk it off.
Absolutely. You got a question there at 3 minutes and 23 seconds. Why Amumu necessarily was still clearing the blue buff. It's not necessarily the speediest clear out of this Amumu, nor is it necessarily insanely fast, say, as like a Zyra or a Morgana or one of those, AP sort of burn junglers for the side of the Udyr. But I'm curious to see to know, I guess, what happened there that Amumu was a little bit late as some fighting in the top lane.
Oh my gosh!
You didn't even get a word in. My bad.
No. There's nothing to say. Nothing to say. That was just a bonk in a dead Mundo.
Yep, absolutely. Stubby really showing a little bit of dominance, putting his foot down here, showing himself to really be the tank rock in the top lane. Unfortunately, not on Malphite. That would be rather punny. But Stubby absolutely performing this game, getting solo kills on tank duty. Always good to see. You love to have a top laner like that on your team, as we're possibly getting a gank here mid with the Amumu.
And Kibba has flash available, gonna drift right on out of there with the Conquering Sands. It's like some Tokyo Drift style stuff there. Really nicely done. Kibba escapes.
Deja vu. I've just been in this place before. Tokyo drifted right out of there. Yeah, actually, really excellently done from the Azir. I like going sort of northwest up towards river and then down. Just an excellent use to get her out of the bandage toss, out of the ground from Cassiopeia. Really good, really safe pick, using it effectively here. I also really like the Milio moving with Amumu there. You love to see that. You almost want to see it more than you typically do in competitive games like this. The support making roams up to the mid lane. I think it's a super potent tool, as we're going to see more pressure out of Tristana on Jinx.
Yeah, Evil Zara wants to thread the needle. Look at the wave state for the Jinx. It's very hard to walk up without your support. And even with your support, there's a dredge line. But unfortunately, Evil Zara doesn't have the rocket jump to follow this one up. But when the wave is like this, it's so difficult for Jinx and Milio to farm. But the only unfortunate thing is Evil Zara with the passive on the satchel charge is going to be able to push out that wave regardless, because you just deal passive damage to minions. There's nothing you can really do. But nonetheless, if you take a look at the CS, it's a lead here for Evil Zara. This lane has been tough for the Jinx. Much more tough for Mei than it was last time around.
Yeah, you got to be curious, or I guess cautious if you're Amumu here. I don't think they necessarily have vision of where the Udyr is. I think they're playing this off of gut feeling and jungle tracking and pathing, but they're making a trade here for the dragon on the bot side, and they're going to be taking the grubs. I think there's an understanding that they've got 3 kills on the board, 2 of them being on the carry positions for Omega Gaming Fever. Amumu's going to say, you know what, let's pick up these grubs. Probably the safer play, as we expect Fever to stack dragons here, which they do.
And they're sitting inside of this tribe rush now. Is Omega Fever's bot lane. They're praying. They're saying, D-Shot, bro, please walk into this brush. Give me that free kill. Not going to get it, but they do get the dragon. And now the junglers are establishing a split map here. It's going to be Alvis farming away inside of the jungle of Sailor, and vice versa, Sailor with Alvis. The top laners constantly beating the hell out of each other. They both have that Grasp of the Undying, so that permanent HP rolling through with each proc that they get. But Stubby's still 1-0 up in this game with those solo kills. And playing very confident right now. He's going to use the Call of the Forge God here, but the healing from the Mundo should be enough to just be able to tank all the damage that Ornn has to provide. But Alvis is here. It was a bait, and Stubby's fallen into the trap. He said, I wanted that second solo kill. It looked so good, but I could not get it. The response play, though, is a kill onto Mei here from Omega Fever and D-Shot. Well, I got nowhere to go, and I got no flash. It's just coming off a cooldown, but it wouldn't really matter anyways. 2 big kills in the wave denied. Omega Fever's bot lane is rolling.
The Omega Gaming Fever plan of taking the Sivir off the board and giving this Tristana a winning lane is coming to fruition here, Ferris, as we now see this Tristana up 10 CS, up 3 kills and 1 assist to none and none, respectively, for the Jinx. The Tristana is beginning to come online. You got to be worried a little bit if you're Syndicate Pepsi, excuse me. But however, you still have tools at your disposal, right? This game, certainly not over. If you're Syndicate Pepsi here, Ferris, what do you think about coming back into this game and neutralizing this bot lane lead that Fever has?
Well, I'm parking Alvis down at the bot lane and preventing any more dives from coming through. The ganks are nice, right? You get the kill on Stubby, but in the end, it's tank versus tank, and those kills are not going to be game-changing. It's not going to be earth-shattering. What is going to be earth-shattering is a Tristana with 3 kills and your Jinx being this far behind. So Alvis needs to come over here and protect his bot lane, make sure Mei can farm it up, escape this lane phase without any more deaths. And then maybe you can move your AD carry to the mid lane to get that farm rolling through. And you just stall is all you have to do now to get yourself back to a point where you feel comfortable enough to be able to start contesting fights.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfectly fair game plan. I think also there's an understanding, right, that the Jinx is an absolute threat even with not a lot of kills in their pocket, moving into mid and late game skirmishes simply because of
there's a
past
flash
events.
curse of the sad mummy though. And this is what we were talking about here, Swifty. Get that pressure down, get that jungler into the bot lane to help out your Jinx. Super Mega Death Rocket. The splash damage is good. And the shutdown goes to Mei here. Dredgeline will not connect. A 1-for-0. Syndicate Pepsi, they get it done down here.
I think they heard you in comms, Ferris. They made it happen. They're putting Jinx back on the board. Awesome Super Mega Death Rocket from Mei there. I think that was out of vision, if I'm not mistaken, which, is always impressive. Great to see. Sailor's going to try and catch this wave, prevents too many plates from going over to Mei and D-Shot's pockets, but again, excellently played from Syndicate. They're certainly not out of this one. They know what their win con is. And even Jinx slightly behind or close to even with a Tristana moving into any of these fights is absolutely deadly with that reset passive. As we're going to see Albus sort of move to mid lane, maybe apply some pressure, but ultimately back off.
Has all 3 camps up available in the top side jungle. Going to go ahead and get some of that gold in his pocket. The next set of grubs is on the way. And Syndicate Pepsi already has 3 in the bank. Denial of any grubs from Tristana is always nice. We know how fast they are able to take that down as Albus here sees this ward, going to clear it away. Sailor waiting in the wings, going to use the blast cone and contest him. The ward doesn't drop, so it's going to be Omega Fever that still has some of that vision control over the grubs. And I expect to see some vision game being played, sweeping and wards. And the grubs are going to be the hot commodity here of the next couple minutes.
I think they're absolutely a hot commodity. Like you said, on the Tristana, it is a potent tool for split pushing with that satchel charge bomb on the tower. However, for Jinx, who gets resets on these towers, any fight in the mid to late game where your Jinx is now up with 6 grubs becomes possibly game ending with 6 grubs. I think both compositions really like the prospect of having grubs in their pocket, and they're going to fight over it, Ferris.
Albus has been hit with a dredge line, but there's no Curse of the Sad Mummy yet, but there it goes. It comes through, but it isn't enough. Call of the Forge God used to pick up that kill, and Sailor flashes over the wall to chase down D-Shot, who uses a flash of his own. And this will be 2 grubs that go over to Omega Fever, so they deny the 6, but critically 4 grubs is secured. So I believe it's Void Mites now.
That is a single Void Mite.
Syndicate.
Yep. That is a single Void Mite. You're absolutely correct, Ferris. Critically, like you said, Amumu was able to pick up 1. I believe that was sort of the understanding of that play. I think they backed everyone else out, sacrificed the Amumu, get the 4 grubs. This is a Jinx who will be able to get resets on turrets later in the game. And if any fight goes Syndicate Pepsi's way, they can turn what normally maybe 1 or 1.5 turrets into 2 or 3. With this extra split pushing ability. But hey, you picked up 2 grubs for the side of Omega Gaming Fever. Tristana is nothing to slouch at or to scoff at in terms of the split push and tower knocking down game either. As now, Omega Gaming Fever is going to look to take the top 2 grubs, turn that into a dragon here on the bot side.
And these early Drakes, when you are the team with the better bot lane strength in the early game, it's so important that you pick up these early Drakes. You can potentially transition it into a soul, and then if you have the lead, you're going to be able to get these Drakes very easily later on, and they have the lead right now. So this is going to be a problem then for Syndicate Pepsi later on if they get the soul point, if they are forced to contest maybe a dragon that they don't feel that they're strong enough to contest, otherwise the other team gets soul. That's where the problems will arise. So up to Syndicate Pepsi in the next couple minutes to bring themselves to a point where they can actually start contesting these objectives without just having to give everything and waiting on that Jinx Cassio scaling.
Absolutely. It sort of buys themselves time too into a team, like you just said, that either Cassio and Jinx are going to be scaling. You don't necessarily want to be going into 2 hyperscale carries like that with a 2 dragon deficit. That never feels good. They understand that possibility in the game. While they are in the driver's seat, they're going to put their pedal down, put their foot down on the pedal, pick up these objectives as they can, pick up as much gold as they can, as they're now sitting at about 2.5k gold lead, 2 dragons up, down to Void Mites, but I do think if anyone's slightly in the driver's seat this game, it is Omega Gaming Fever so far.
It absolutely is. And Evil Zara, if I'm this Tristana, I'm wanting to knock down this bot lane tower, and I want to move around the map now. I want to get this Tristana involved in knocking down these towers. If I'm Omega Gaming Fever, my game plan is let's win as fast as we possibly can. Now with the Rift Herald alive on the map too, Sailor's in position to grab that. They want towers, towers, towers. Let's use our Tristana, let's move her around the map, and let's knock these things down. Let's potentially get a Herald as well. And then they can start to make plays with their lead. And there we go. First turret taken down as Naysayer might just flash this. He will and force the flash off of May. These are the plays that you want to look for with the gold lead.
Absolutely. They get the tower. They're probably going to move this Tristana over to the mid lane where the Tristana Nautilus can affect more of the map easily and more of the objectives more quickly, right? I like to see that flash play as we're going to get a
big
shuffle.
Emperor's Divide. Shurima Shuffle is excellent from Kibaboy. Going to be hitting the Petrifying Gaze is Sung Yoni and retreating back towards the team with the flash. They should be able to get themselves out of that situation now. Will the play continue is the question. Still 2k HP here on the Rift. Herald now is into the fight. Goes Sailor. The smite will go the way of the Amumu. Alvis picks that one up. Curse in the side. Mummy goes through right before he perishes, but this will be a 2-for-0 for Omega Gaming Fever. And the Super Mega Death Rocket gets no value. And the Fever are feeling nice after this play.
They are feeling nice. What I do believe is they lost. Yes, I'm seeing it now in the Amumu. They lost the Rift Herald, but you feel good about those kills as they're going for more, Ferris.
They are. The Breath of Life was used by D-Shot, and that's going to be a cooldown used, but the Jinx will stay alive.
The Jinx will stay alive. I like the call out of Syndicate Pepsi there to make a play for the Rift Herald. They see that Nautilus is expending the flash to burn Jinx's flash on the bot side with Tristana. Is going again, Ferris.
He is. You want to be as aggressive as possible when you're playing this Nautilus pick, and that's exactly what Naysayer is doing. I like the aggression out of this player.
Absolutely, I love it. Pulling out summoners where they can. Also, just great job to get that flash out of Jinx and then immediately rotate up to the Rift Herald where they're going to win that fight. They lose the Rift Herald, but they pick up a few kills. They're able to burn out critical ultimates, namely the Petrifying Gaze out of Cassiopeia, which means they're now in a split fight where Dr. Mundo and Amumu are sitting finishing off this Rift Herald, and what I believe was the Milio and Cassiopeia are now sitting split on the other side of the wall with no real way to re-enter the fight and not a lot of health to do so. They recognize this, Mega Gaming Fever. They make the rotation. They take the fight, pick up the kills, sacrifice the Rift Herald, but for an overall net win, in my opinion, as they're going to look to keep applying this pressure as they're walking into about a 5k gold lead at 16 and a half minutes here, Ferris.
And I would call a 5k gold lead a net win if I was to say. That's a pretty solid place to be at 16 minutes into the game. And now the Vision game will begin around potentially Drake number 3 coming up in about 45 seconds as Naysayer doing his best to clear away the Vision, making sure that this jungle and this river is as dark as possible for Syndicate Pepsi. Because back to our earlier point, this is kind of when you get worried if you're Syndicate Pepsi. Okay, well, they're staring down the barrel of a soul point here, and then the next one we absolutely do have to contest. It'd be lovely if we could get one for ourselves. But again, a 5k gold deficit and our jungle's dark. This is where it gets really difficult here. And this is where Omega Fever are going to put the pressure on, and their target right now is going to be Alvis on the Amumu, going to force away that flash, but the bandage toss will bring him right back in. And there is going to be the Curse of the Sad Mummy. That's going to be a 1-for-0 so far for Syndicate Pepsi. Not a bad start to the fight for them. And there is a teleport flank now from Strangru, who's made his way onto Kibaboy. Into the fight goes Stubby, who's knocked up in the front line. He's got 2 people with the Searing Charge. And here comes Evil Zara. Gets in, gets out. Bunny hopping for the 1-for-1 now, but Stubby's being hit up here by the Cassiopeia. Lots of damage being applied. The Azir Tower will follow that protection from the side of Omega Fever will go away. The health bars are very low, but in the end, not a bad fight. But will this dragon be started?
If I'm Omega Gaming Fever, I'm starting this dragon, even with the low health bars. So much was expended from both teams here. D-Shot's going to try and pick up some vision. It was a 1-for-1 trade for both teams here. So, a relatively net even fight, but what a close one. Jinx is able to pick up the kill onto Naysayer's Nautilus really quickly there early on in the fight with the Super Mega Death Rocket. However, isn't really able to get in range with the sort of Ornn body blocking a lot of those shots and able to effectively use that reset and then pick up more kills in the fight. I think had the positioning been a little bit different and there was a little bit more ease of an access for that Jinx to continue with those resets, to continue output damage on priority targets, on Omega Gaming Fever, I think that may be a slightly different fight. However, Stubby doing an excellent job at nullifying that Jinx's ability to continue with those resets. It's a 1-for-1. They turn back onto the dragon. They have the map positioning to do so, and they pick up their third dragon of the game, putting them at Hextech Soul Point.
In 5 minutes, and that is what has happened to the Jinx. A double kill for Evil Zara, and that should be the tower now. Excellent pickup here for Omega Fever.
Absolutely excellent pickup. One thing that was almost missed there was the Cassiopeia was killed on the bot side of the map in the matchup for this year. That was a 4v5. I think they immediately pulled the trigger so quickly that we didn't even notice this. There's a fight on this moon though, Ferris.
Strangleroot's tanking a lot of damage. He is very tanky. That satchel charge nearly took him out, but with the Milio healing, the Breath of Life as well, that's big.
That is very big. And yeah, Azir, this Kiba boy on this Azir, took the fight with the Cassiopeia, won that fight, and applied pressure in the bot lane, and they immediately took a 4v4 mid. What a big push and turn of events, as Azir's going to use a little bit of a shuffle, but a bandage toss may come his way.
Happy feed. It's not going to matter because he pressed the curse to the sad mummy button. A big shutdown there for Sung Yoni. So something to be happy about if you're Syndicate Pepsi, but still a way to go.
Sure, they punish a little bit of the overstay. They use the relatively recently buffed bandage toss to have 2 charges. 2 good effect there. Azir gets caught out. Kiba Boy goes down. Some gold goes into the pocket of Sung Yongni. However, we now have the side of Omega Gaming Fever now moving up to the top side to set up and clear vision for this Baron. Ferris, it's a good pickup for Syndicate Pepsi here on the bot side, but make no mistake, Omega Gaming Fever is in charge of this game right now. They are setting and dictating the pace of this game, and the pace that they want is moving them towards taking Baron as the next objective here.
And when you're this far ahead, a 21-minute Baron is something that is plausible for you and your team. And depending on how well of vision you have around the objective, you can force the other team into fights that they don't want to take. And right now, Syndicate Pepsi don't want anything to do with fights. They are very far behind. The gold lead is 6,000 here for Omega Fever. And leveraging the Baron as fast as possible is the way that is actually going to get Omega Fever the results that they want as soon as possible and prevent any scaling from coming through. Look at the gold as our observer here. Chris has shown us in the bot side. That is exceptionally big, and that is the PowerPoint right now for Omega Fever, and they want to make it stay that way until the end of the game. So Baron, like you mentioned swiftly, is the way to do it.
Absolutely. When you have a lead like that, Baron only exacerbates gold leads, right? It is not permanent, excuse me, but it is a team-wide buff that takes your gold lead and makes it even bigger. And League 101, for all of our viewers and for us here on the casting desk this evening, League 101, gold wins games. Gold gives you items. It gives you the ability to kill people. It gives you the ability to take the Nexus down. And with a gold lead like this, they want to start these objectives. They want to push the pace of the game. They don't want to give any time to this Cassiopeia, to this Jinx, to really come online and actually change the outcome of these fights. As we're going to see this Baron started up by Stubby, by Sailor, and by, I believe that was Kiba Boy. Evil Zara has not rotated to this Baron yet, and I don't think Syndicate Pepsi knows this is happening, Ferris.
They definitely don't. They either don't know what's happening or they simply don't care. That was about as easy of a Baron as it gets. If I'm Omega Fever, I'm saying, hey, that's free as hell. We're going to take that. And what's coming up next is the soul. So you're having that little bit of extra stats that Baron gives you for this soul fight, which is so important to you as well. So they are big chillin' right now ahead of the biggest fight of the game, a fight that might actually dictate how this game goes. It could be the end. And here comes the teleport now for Strangleroot. Going to join this party now, 5 members strong here for both teams. Well, not quite yet, as Kiba Boy has to join up. There goes the TP. Hextech Drake down to 7,000 here as Sailors on the flank. There's the Call of the Forge God. The engage is huge here. Back onto the back line is the jungle support duo here of Omega Fever. The Curse of the Sad Mummy comes through. The Dragon is exposed now for the rest of the Fever, and they should be able to get this one, but it's an excellent shuffle now. 1 for 1 for the moment. Make that 1 for 2. It's Fever with the numbers. The Hextech Soul is theirs. The fight is theirs, and the game is soon to be theirs if they keep this up.
Absolutely. It is a win overall, a Dragon Soul, and 2 kills for 1 for the side of Omega Gaming Fever. Critically, I would like to point out that their back timers were not synced for a post Baron, rather, for the side of Fever here. They did not have control of Pit to start this Dragon. However, at this point in the game, like we've said time and time again, Wallet Gap absolutely shores up mistakes like that. I think it's a mistake from Fever to not sync their backs up, but they've got the gold advantage. They've got the wallet money. It looks like they can't be stopped here mid, even though Pepsi's trying to make something happen, and they're going to walk their way out of it.
Yes, they are. The resets are going to come through now. They have a tier 2 in the top lane to still knock off. And the objective at the very minimum with this Baron will be to crack open that base. And if you are Omega Fever, let's assess their team composition here. How are you best approaching this amount of Baron time? They actually don't have a whole lot of time left, 50 seconds. But let's say it were to be refreshed, their timer. How are you positioning your team around the map here to get the most value from destroying their structures?
It's a great question. I think critically, and this goes back to my point before, Azir's mistiming and understanding of the proper lane assignments and the active coming up critically lost the TP in that fight. Azir had to blow TP just to get to that fight. I think in an ideal situation, you can 1-3-1 with 2 TPs and have this insane threat of tower pushing out of your Tristana. Azir is nothing to laugh at again, right? With tower pushing ability, and you have the TP threat on the side lane, forcing the Mundo to match that, right? Giving yourself a better numbers advantage. However, they don't actually have the TP. They're still looking like they're going with almost a 1-3-1 or a 1-2-1 with a hover from the Udyr. I think there's very few mistakes though in how they can execute this with this much gold in their pockets over Syndicate Pepsi. The mid lane tower covering inhibitor is going to go down. They are now in a true 1-3-1, even without the TP out of the Azir. They're pushing down this inhibitor. They're looking to close this game out, Ferris, as now waves are crashing bot and mid lane simultaneously, even though this wave is relatively small. I think the best way to use their advantage they have now, they want these turrets. They're going to want to sync up their waves, have them crash at the same time. Use the gold in the pockets of Tristana and Azir to apply split map pressure, right? They're not necessarily executing this, I think, to perfection right now, but then again, like I've said maybe 5 times now, they've got so much gold, it almost doesn't matter. They're able to do so much damage to these turrets. It's hard to respond if you're Syndicate Pepsi, as Cass is maybe trying to make something happen.
They are trying to make something happen. Alvis is dead.
Whoa.
My man just said, to hell with it, I'm dying. We're dying out here. And that's exactly what he did. He died pretty quickly, and now the rest of his team may just follow suit. Goodbye, says Sung Yoni. I'm out of this game. Now it's just D-Shot, May, and Strangleroot to try and save their game and save their series at that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is game number 3 in Omega Fever. They want to get it done right here, right now. They're going to start that fight here. The Emperor's Divide will not connect onto D-Shot, but it will connect onto May, who dies immediately. Strangleroot gets one back, but it won't be enough to save the game. That is 4 dead now. The death timers are too long. Alvis comes out of the death chamber here soon, but not enough damage is alive right now for Syndicate Pepsi to save this one. The Nexus towers are dropping. This should be the end of it. Alvis tries to clear the way, but with no towers left, you have no option but to try and fight your way out of this one. You simply cannot do it. The Nexus is under fire. Ladies and gentlemen, week 1 of Titan Conqueror concludes with an Omega Fever victory.
Well done, an execution there at the end. They know they have the gold advantage. There might be minor things to shore up, like we were just talking about there, but at the end of the day, like we said before, gold wins games, Ferris, and they had so much of it. I've never seen an Amumu at that point in a game just leave my screen and go to gray screen prison. The damage was utterly unstoppable for the side of Fever there. They recognize this. They say, you know what, let's just apply pressure. Let's do it now. Maybe we don't have to wait, like Swifty said, for the waves to line up. We're just going to kill these guys. They do it. They take the win. They take home their first win of Titan Conqueror here in week 1, Ferris.
They absolutely do. And that seems like that was their go-to play style, was the aggression that you're mentioning there. And when that was shut down, like in game 2 with the Sivir pick, when they couldn't really leverage their lead from the top side, that is where Omega Fever struggled. So they took out the Sivir pick, they ran it back with the Tristana 3 games in a row. So take notes, teams that are playing this team in the future, that might be a pick you might want to take off the board, because it was a really big focal point of their success. This team loves to play forward, they love to snowball, and they did it so well when they had the right team that they were playing against, when they felt comfortable in that draft. And I thought, we had the pro draft score come through, 60% for Syndicate Pepsi in that one. And still, against the odds, it was Omega Fever that came out on top.
I think that goes back to the point you just made. Clearly, Tristana is a power pick for this team. It is a power pick for Evil Zara. 3 games on it, willing to add a Sivir ban in there just so the Tristana is going to have a lane that the Trist feels comfortable in. They execute flawlessly, 10k damage up, over doubling the damage of the Jinx that game. They're able to play to the play style that they like, which clearly was find those early leads, put the pedal down, and floor it, bring home the win, right? They execute game 3. They made the right adjustments. Props to them. For the side of Syndicate Pepsi, though, I would like to add and comment, certainly not a team to scoff at. If you're another team catching this game 3 after your game series, absolutely excellent adjustments moving from game 1 into game 2. I think they had a great draft strategy game 1. Didn't really come to fruition. Maybe it was some executional issues, but they said, hey, let's take it back to the basics. Let's take that Skarner that they're not going to take off the table, force it to be banned game 3. They pick up a win game 2. And clearly, like pro drafts at the comps, whatchamacallit, statistical advantage to the side of Syndicate Pepsi here was there. To me, it is a draft that has winning strategies. Unfortunately, I think it might come down to comfort for this Tristana. They can't really find the angles. They can't find the Amumu's ability to stop that Udyr from running around. And they can't quite pull this one out. But certainly there are a lot of good looks out of Syndicate Pepsi. I think this is a team I'm excited to watch as the rest of the season unfolds, as I'm excited to watch Omega Gaming Fever. I think we've got 2 heavy hitters here in this week 1 stream, and I'm glad we were able to see them perform.
As was I. Honestly, to kick off Titan Conqueror, we probably couldn't have asked for a better of a series. Back and forth, went the distance. We saw a crazy Baron steal there from Sailor in game number 2. We saw a lot of nice plays. Some funny stuff happened. Rift Herald charges were canceled. But nonetheless, that was a banger of a series, and we were happy to cast that and happy to bring that to all of you as we now bring the stream to a close. That was Omega Fever versus Syndicate Pepsi. That was week 1 of the Titan Conqueror League. We will see you in week number 2. So hope to see you there. Everyone have a very good night. Thank you to Chris, who was on production for this stream. It was very beautiful. Lots of nice animations. Shout out to Chris. And we'll see you all in the next week. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and have a great night.